retweet it out. And Cliff, if I end up looking over here or over there during this, which I will, that's only because my chat is off to the right.
Yeah, let me rush up to my other PC and retweet you.
Yeah, no worries.
You added me, right?
No, but I will right now. But yeah, so anyway, all right. So we are live. Cliff is going to go tweet that we're live, and then we are officially going to be live. Let me retweet this. All right, there we go. So Cliff will be here in just a moment. Let me say hey to all you guys. Let me tell you how today is going to work. Where's my thing? There we go. There we go. Good to see you guys. Hello, Joe. Hello, Mike. Hello, Rob the Mod is going to be screening your calls in the call-in waiting room. Although for some reason, Rob is in the Moonshine and Biscuit Social Club. I don't know why. I don't know what he's doing in there, but he's doing something in the Moonshine and Biscuit Social Club. But here we go. This right here, as you know, needs no introduction. Good Sir Cliff Bleszinski. Hello, Cliff. How are you, man?
I'm fantastic. How are you, dude?
I am very good. You know, I had my second COVID shot, and
yep.
you know,
how's your 5G? Is your 5G good?
Yeah, you know, I keep hearing a little voice in my head, which is Bill Gates saying something like, I shouldn't have divorced my wife or so. I don't know if I'm getting it correct, but it's something.
Dude, it's a fun fact about my memoir. I submitted it to Simon & Schuster, and one of the edits that they put in, because I talk about when I met Bill Gates during Gears 1 and how he had soft hands.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, you might want to downplay Bill Gates because there's some he used to hang out with Epstein a little bit. And I'm just like, dude, rich assholes all hang out. Not all of them are like pedos, right? So
well,
it is what it is.
So let me ask you that. I was going to ask about the book, but I mean, I saw something you had tweeted. By the way, what I was going to say before you tweeted that is I have my chat over here. I have my notes over here. So if I'm looking around, it's not that I'm not giving my full attention. I'm just I want to make sure I'm moving the thing along because we only have 90 minutes. So
no, it's totally cool.
I've said before, I have had interviews like that. I'm sure you have too, where I'm like, dude, my fucking eyes are up here, motherfucker. It's like, are we talking or are we not talking? So we have 90 minutes with Cliff. I don't recommend anybody super chat because I can't promise you I'll get to them. But in 60 minutes, we're going to start taking phone calls. So I guarantee you, I'm going to give you guys that time. I know you guys want to talk to Cliff, but I'm going to talk to Cliff for an hour. So fuck off. All right, here we go.
Of course we can swear on this. It's fucking Jaffe.
You have to, man.
I don't trust anybody that doesn't swear or like dogs.
No. Oh, I know. Oh, we're getting into dogs. My dog is so sweet. He's getting to that age, though. I'm not going to tell my kids, but he's getting to that age where he doesn't want to jump up on the bed as much. He doesn't want to jump into and you know what's coming. Yeah,
dude.
Like,
I've never had to put a dog down, and I've had to put down my 13-year-old Australian Shepherd right after Boss Key cratered. So I was a mess for a year, man. So I basically got him when I was going through my divorce from my first wife.
Oh, so you were
as I was working on Gears 1, so I called him my Gears divorce dog, and that dog had seen me at the best and worst of my adult life. And that was heartbreaking. But so a year later, we wound up getting another dog. But there's a whole story behind that. I don't know how you want to.
Whatever. I mean, let's talk. But I mean, well, no, there's no pacing. We're just talking. I mean, there is a pace. It's a meta. It doesn't matter. But all I would tell you is dogs, man. There's something about that relationship where it's just I don't know. I don't really believe in God or anything like that, but. There's something about that relationship where it's like they are so good for the soul. They are just
they really are, dude.
The kindest thing in the world. I adore them, man. I fucking love them.
So we have two right now. We have an American Eskimo mix named Evie.
Okay.
She's about 10 years old. She's the one that barks at fucking everything. I fucking love her, but she's a fucking spaz. And whenever people come over, like we have to be very careful with the introduction. Like, oh, get down on your knees and say Evie, right? Otherwise, she's actually nipped friends of mine, right? And I've actually had times where the pool lady's in the backyard and I don't know if she's out there. And so I'll let her out because we have a yard with a fence and whatnot. And she bit the fucking pool lady. And I'm like, please don't sue me because if that happens, they can take your dog from you.
Put the dog down.
Exactly. And so it's like that whole fucking thing going on is stressful. But so basically a year after I had to put Teddy down, which was again heartbreaking. That's all of his shrine behind me right there.
Oh yeah, look at the picture. You got a painting of him. Look at that.
Oh no, that's actually the blue dog. It's a famous art from New Orleans.
Oh, okay, well fuck Teddy then. At first I thought you really loved him. No, fuck him.
I actually do have a painting of him in my bedroom that was painted by the art director in the Diablo franchise. He also painted Eevee as well. And so a year later, when the spontaneous crying stopped from putting Teddy down, quick note about that. The service was as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
He went gently. He couldn't walk the last year.
Did you have it at your house? Like we had one for our first put down. I don't know what you call them, but they came over and it was warm, and then we were with the dog and we gave him like McDonald's and all that stuff.
So the night before, we go into town. And I'm grabbing a couple drinks at my favorite bar, and I burst into tears with my favorite bartenders, right?
Yeah.
And then I stop by my favorite steakhouse, and I'm like getting a steak, and I just for some reason wanted to share my grief, start crying on that bartender. I'm the crier in the relationship.
Yeah.
I'm a bitch. My wife's the one who doesn't cry. So we took the steak the next day, made a nice plate for him, let him have a steak dinner and everything like that.
It's the best.
They came over. It went as well as it could have been. But the thing is before they came over, I asked them, I'm like, how are you gonna get the dog out of that? Because he's a 60-pound dog. How are you gonna get him from the area to the van? And she's like, oh, you're gonna help me carry him. I'm like, okay, the last fucking if your job is to put dogs down and the dog's a big dog, bring somebody else, motherfucker. Because the last thing I'm gonna want to do is carry my dead dog. I'm gonna like drop him. And shit,
I thought so too, but I guess you helped carry him, right? Because after
no, she wanted to bring her husband.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I mean, dude, I was such a mess I couldn't even see. So
we were as well, but they're so light. Obviously, when they're not, I don't know what that is. It's not the soul. I
think it's the soul.
But okay, but they're very light, and it's also just you don't want to let your dog go. So people are like, are we going to talk about video games? Fuck you, motherfucker. We're talking about more important things right now. But
we'll get to video games.
That's exactly right. I did not think, I'm not uncomfortable around dead bodies when I encounter them. Like my parents, I hugged my mom, I kissed my mom when she's lying there in the fucking open casket. But yeah. I didn't know I would be that comfortable around them. And so my dog, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to respond once he's gone. And I just didn't want to let him go. I just wanted to kiss him and love him, and so.
Yeah.
Well, we started this off on a very good note, but
so the thing real quick about the other dog that you saw, which was my Zoom profile. Once the year of spontaneous crying stopped, Lauren discovered there's a breed called a Pomsky, which is a Pomeranian mixed with a Husky, and she found a breeder in Charlotte. And I know I should adopt, but sorry, I'm vain, okay? And she showed me the photo of this puppy, and I'm like, oh my god, that's it. And so we basically picked her up coming back from the final season premiere of Game of Thrones. And scooped her up, and we wound up naming her Lady, because I know you didn't watch the show, but Sansa Stark has a direwolf that she winds up naming Lady. And strangely enough, the dog was born on my birthday, February 12th.
Okay. Wait, and this was how long after Teddy had died?
About a year.
So you never know. You never know, man. I mean, reincarnation, maybe it's real. Who knows, right?
I'm taking my time on the kid front as long as humanly fucking possible.
Wait, why?
Because they're parasites, man, and they don't appreciate you until they're like 30.
No, they do. I have a 17-year-old who's going to be 18 before you know it, and obviously that's how it works, Jeffy. And I have a 15-year-old, and it goes way too fast, and it's a joy. It's an absolute joy. It's not for everybody though. I'm not one of these people like you should have kids. No, if you don't want them, don't fucking have them. But
I just know that I'm a selfish piece of shit.
Well, let's talk about that. So you say because it's interesting because I mean I definitely want to get there's so much I want to get through. And by the way, if you're watching the show and you want to call, put yourself in the call-in waiting room. Rob the mod is there. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it as always. Rob will be screening the calls to make sure you're not too much of a dick to good Sir Cliff. The guy's a goddamn legend. Don't be a rude
Lawbreakers failed.
Well, we're going to talk about that too, and we're going to talk about those people. But yeah, if you want to put yourself in there, we'll bring you on a little bit later. Rob the mod. Also, if there's any audio,
it sounds like a wrestler.
Yeah, we have a wrestler in our. It doesn't matter, but if there's any audio problems, let Rob know. We'll fix them. Okay, so you are vain, blah blah blah. Here's my question. My first question. Because I got to know you, not personally, but I got to become aware of you when, we were probably both at the very first E3 or around the first E3s. I was at there 95, was the very first one. And I know you were doing, it was kind of like you and Tallarico, right? You were both kind of peacocking the fuck out of E3.
Anything for attention.
Right, and I don't remember which one it was that had the little people. That may have been Tommy. I don't think you were.
That was Tommy.
Right, okay, but did you you definitely peacocked up, correct?
Yeah, like the first couple of years I was wearing just like corny like Hot Topic type shirts, right?
Okay.
And then eventually I started wearing pimp suits. And so, you know, like
Okay.
there are these places that sell them in town, and they're seen as pimp suits, but in the African American community, these are nice suits that are your Sunday best you wear to church, right?
Okay.
So I was like 130 pounds at that time, you know, 5'9", walking into this, you know, African American shop called Funky Rags, right?
Oh, nice.
And they're looking at me like, what the fuck, right?
Right. Was this in LA? Was this LA?
No, this was in Raleigh. And so
okay.
packing up the suits. I had a white one, a blue one, and a red one. And like I'd strut into the God Games lot, like right. And you know, I have always been a bit of an attention whore, for better or for worse, right? And like, what I've actually been enjoying doing, you know, since my studio folded, is just kind of laying low a little bit. I mean, I still talk all sorts of shit on social media, but you know, I haven't been doing a lot of interviews, and I'm slowly starting to kind of come out of my shell because, you know, like I said, the book's coming out. You know, I'm working on some other new stuff. So you know, being in the public eye is not always the most fun thing because, you know, troll culture has completely taken over. It's also taken over politics. And it's exhausting being on Twitter and seeing what's trending. It's either some Minecraft streamer like getting people to tweet in all caps, "He's in the bathtub," or, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene talking shit about COVID or something like that. You know, so social media is great, but it's also the worst fucking thing in the world.
It is, and I wonder about that because I know. I mean, you know, you really, if you had never become Cliffy B, but you had still made what you made, you would still be a legend. But the idea of, you're welcome, of course. I mean, just play your games. It's obvious. But the idea, though, of, you know, being something alongside that, which is this sort of personality, and that's obviously something you cultivated. And look, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was never that, you know, in terms of I didn't have. I never felt, I don't know if it was confident enough. I don't mind being silly, but I never really felt like, you know, I could pull off some of the stuff you could pull off, but I liked the attention. Look, man, I wanted to be.
Well, it's apples and oranges, but they're both equally clickbait worthy. Like, you know, you were very brash with a lot of the things you would say. So would I.
I think that's true. I think that's true. That was my suit. That was my funky suit, was just go fuck yourself, you know, but it worked.
The thing is, I grew up, you know, in the 80s with Madonna, seeing her change her image, right? So I was like, okay, change your image, you know, I'm going to have red hair this year, then I'm going to have like, you know, blonde hair, then I'm going to just, you know, go back to brown, right? And different outfits, and then earrings, not earrings, I don't know, you know, what kind of chain am I going to wear, all that shit, right? And I read every issue of Entertainment Weekly for 20 years.
I know, and Premiere magazine, did you ever read Premiere?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I just thought I'm a pop culture junkie. You know, I sat there, you know, at the beach one time with my wife on IMDb. She's like, okay, who directed this? I'm like, Mick G. Who directed that? I'm like, Spielberg. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, she's like, how do you know this shit? I'm like, because I wanted to. I always say the reasons I wanted to make games is I wanted to make games that were great. I wanted to get rich doing it, and I wanted to be famous.
It's exactly the same with me. It's exactly the same with me, and not everybody can admit it. But I you know, here's what I want to know. So I know, and I wouldn't reveal anybody's secrets, but you've talked about this on social media. I mean, you've done some therapy as of late or in your life.
Yeah, it's like it's shameful.
I know. I know.
Like that stigma needs to be removed. And the biggest problem with the thing about therapy is there's two things. There's the stigma, and there's also the fucking cost. You know, maybe if more insurance covered more of therapy, you'd see less mass shootings.
Oh, I know. Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. The cost is bad. There's shame around. It is ridiculous that there is shame around mental health, and not even mental health. Like, people don't even understand. If you go to a therapist, even though there's nothing shameful about having a mental disorder, it's just like having any other kind of disorder. It's all physiological end of the day anyway. But ultimately, if you go to a therapist, you're probably more healthy than the average fucking bear, right? Because sometimes you can go just because I'm like, look, man, I've had a shit month. I've had a shit year. I got divorced, or I'm having a hard time dealing with success. Help me. Let's just talk, you know? And people
what ended up happening was my mother-in-law was diagnosed a year and a half ago with stage 4 lung cancer that had metastasized. Okay. And so my wife and I had to go nonstop back and forth to a suburb outside of New Orleans, right?
Okay.
And, you know, so we could spend time with her. I didn't realize what a death sentence it was at the time. This was pre-COVID. So we'd fly to New Orleans, we'd stay near the French Quarter, you know, go across the lake and visit with the family for 8 hours, come back at about 8 o'clock, you know, drink all the drinks, eat all the food, you know, I basically took up residency at the Cat's Meow karaoke bar out there, you know, go down to Frenchman Street, go down to all the fun gay bars. It's just such a fucking great town.
But you're saying you didn't know it was a death sentence, meaning you were just thinking you were visiting somebody in the hospital and she'd be out in a couple of months?
Well, I mean, they tried chemo, things like that, but it was one of those things like pancreatic cancer. The survival rate was like very, very little. And, you know, I wasn't talking to my own mother I haven't talked to her for 10 years. And so, you know, my wife's mother kind of became my mother. And, you know, the thing that was shocking about this is like, Bleszinski's die quick. My dad died of a heart attack age 47. My nephew died in a car accident age 20. Boom, right? Like I've never seen the slow decline of cancer, and it's a motherfucker, dude.
Yeah.
I'm going to spare you the details, but needless to say, like I had to grapple between, you know, caring about this woman and the family and seeing what they're going through, but also being away from my home, my comfort zone, my dogs. Right. Not to mention the financial cost of nonstop travel and things like that. And then when COVID hit, we basically didn't even want to stay in New Orleans because we didn't want to risk her, you know. So then we opted to fly private. I know, for very much first world problem. But that gets really, really expensive because we didn't want to be on the plane and expose her to COVID. Of course. You know, by the time it clicked in that she was going to die, we wanted to make sure she would die surrounded by family instead of on a fucking ventilator in the fucking hospital.
Right.
And she did, and it was incredibly sad. And you know, I'm working through grief with my wife. You know, and there's a line in the book. I don't want to sound like I'm plugging my book.
No, plug the. I want to ask about the book.
It sounds shitty because I'm talking about my poor mother-in-law dying of cancer. Then like, by the way, I have a book. But the thing is, you know, my wife was there when my studio was crumbling, and I was, you know, having panic attacks and was miserable, right? And you know, I basically said like, now it was my turn to be there for her, you know.
Right. So okay, but you that's what sent you into therapy, though.
A number of things. It was, you know, the studio crumbling, the dog dying, you know, my mother-in-law, all of it. Like, you know, one of my biggest strengths is I know my weaknesses. You know, as I've gotten older, you know, the check-in with mental health. Why I'm feeling upset right now. Why is that? You know, ways to, in a good way, redirect feelings, you know. So it's like when I lost, you know, my dog Teddy, and the grief that I felt, I learned a way that I could, you know, get through the grief and redirect that into love of the dogs that I do have and appreciating every fucking day I get with them. Because as Louis C.K. or George Carlin said, life is a series of dogs.
Oh, that's pretty good. What were you doing before you learned those techniques? Like, did you medicate with drugs or alcohol or video games? Drinking. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, the video game industry taught me how to drink. You know, and to this day, I still do drink a little bit too much. But the thing is, you know, what I've discovered is, you know, gummies. You know, like gummies are my jam.
You mean like edible gummies, like in terms of marijuana, or do you mean? Oh, it's legal here. I have them right here. Yeah.
Fuck you, David.
I get them. They deliver them like pizza.
I cannot confirm nor deny whether or not I have,
I adore
participated in the devil's lettuce.
I love it so much. It's so
but
much
if
fun.
if
you had, yeah.
You know, indica, I hear, is great.
It's great. Yes.
And I've struggled with sleep my entire. We'll get back to the drinking thing.
Sure.
I've struggled with sleep my entire life. My brain goes at 9 million fucking miles an hour. It's those memes about like with the brain in the bed, the comics where it's like at 4 a.m.
Yes.
I'm gonna solve the murder of John Benet Ramsey, right? Like that kind of shit.
Right.
And but the thing is, I tried Ambien, Lunesta, melatonin, just drinking too much, working out a ton, and nothing has allegedly worked better than indica gummies.
That's what Kevin Smith says. Kevin Smith is just kind of like, you know, he fought it for a while because everybody was it's such a shameful thing, you know, especially being a kid of the 80s with Nancy Reagan and shit. And finally he's just like, you know what? I'm functional on this shit. I mean, I don't take it every day, but I take it like once a week. But he's like, I'm functional. I can work really well. I'm productive. I'm happier. Go fuck the pharmaceutical industry. I'm sorry you guys
that
can't.
too, but you know the reason it's legal is because of the Nixon era. Because you know,
illegal,
illegal, weed was enjoyed by his opponents, which were hippies and African Americans, right? So to this day, there's still that stigma, right? And so you know, it's coming though, dude. Like in Virginia, it's legalized. So you know, I'm friends with the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. And every time he calls me to check in and inevitably asks me for money, it's like, okay, how we doing on that front? And you know, the problem is the NC House is majority Republican, right? And so
and didn't you guys? I know there's all these awful voting laws that are happening all over the country. I don't know what's I know North Carolina just passed a you know, and I say this coming from Alabama, so it ain't like I don't have my wall of shame of shit those people did, but they just passed the most offensive, cruel anti-trans bill that I've ever. I was like, are you shitting me that passed? And it did. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Lady Gaga, you were born this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back to alcohol.
Yeah, you know, alcohol therapy. Are we gonna talk about games? Fuck you. This is games.
Dying,
where do you think the games come from? I'm looking over here at the chats over here. Where do you think the games come from? You know, Jay-Z has a line where he says, you know, my pain, your entertainment.
Wait,
That's where the shit comes from.
Which chat channel should I be
if you go to YouTube and actually just watch it, don't watch, pop out your chat from YouTube because the video will be out of sync because we're about 5 seconds ahead.
No, I'm not gonna. I have everything working. I'm not gonna fuck.
Oh,
with it.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So here's what I wanted to know, though. I'll get back to the drinking, but what I'm curious about is the character arc of you, in the sense that you start off in the public eye, just like me. We both wanted to be known and whatnot. And you had a very big flair, and that evolved, but it didn't, you know, it was still there in the Gears days. At least it seemed from an outside looking in. But now you seem healthier, more normal. I don't mean normal like that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you seem more like a less of a performance art piece and more of a human being. And is that like because you got over that, you worked through that, or it's like, no, dude, I still want to do that, I'm just doing it differently? Or like, what happened?
I mean, I'm fucking 46 years old, dude.
I understand, but so is Madonna. At some point you get,
well, you've seen her attention grabs lately.
I know.
They're kind of sad, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
The thing is, you know, I'm fortunate that I made enough money that I don't have to work, you know, and I'm incredibly happy in my marriage, you know, like, and that's the thing is, you know, marriage is, you know, as Chris Rock says, easy to get into, hard to maintain,
right.
You know, and the funny thing is, you know, after my studio crumbled, I didn't want to fucking play any games. I didn't want to touch any of them. Yeah. I didn't want to see them. And video games are what got, like, helped me find my wife. You know, she won this Miss Video Game tournament, beat 300 other girls. She showed up in all the blogs, and I was like, that's my next girlfriend.
Right.
And after the studio crumbled, she's like, you know, the reason, like, you know, we sit there at a resort in Mexico with our DSs playing Tetris, and she was the first person in years to beat me in Tetris because she was doing those T-spins and shit. Nice. And it's one of those things that, you know, and she's also the sweetest, most caring, loving person, obviously lovely. And she was like, can we play games tonight? Can we play games tonight? And I'm like, no. No, yeah. Just, you know, teach a man to make games. He'll never want to play one for the rest of his life. You know that adage, right?
I do. And let me tell you something. So, you know, it's really weird, almost to the point, and I don't know if you've ever picked up on this, but, you know, it's almost like I've always looked at you like we have this weird parallel career in some ways. And I don't know if, I mean, everything from like God of War to Gears of War. But right. But the fact that it's like you were the guy at Microsoft at Xbox, even though I know you didn't work for Xbox, and you were kind of out there getting a lot of attention, saying crazy shit. I was the guy for PlayStation getting out there saying crazy shit. You know, we left, we started studios, our studios failed. It's just like, it's almost like
we both made shooters that did not get any traction at our new studios.
Absolutely. And so when my studio failed, I felt like a lot of people thought I was upset with like Corey or God of War or Santa Monica. They're like, why aren't you fucking playing that game? I'm like, I'm not upset with them. I just don't want to play anything that reminds me of what I have done. I need to distance. And what's been amazing is, since I haven't really done games for the last couple of years, I have absolutely fallen back in love with the medium. Like, I'm playing more now and loving games more now than I have since college. Like, because you're right. Once you get in that industry, you know, at least if you're like me, you can't help but look at everything you play like the competition.
But dude, it's not just being in the industry. It's also having your own studio and being the CEO and looking at that burn rate and knowing exactly how much that one character costs to outsource to Budapest or whatever, right? Yep. And to sit there month after month and tick, 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 tick. And the little things, like when we started the studio, the first 20 people that took the risk, you know, some, you know, people coming from Sucker Punch, coming all the way from Seattle, moving their fucking families out, right? You know, it's a lot of weight. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. You know, I got my first fucking gray hairs from it. And then to sit there and, you know, to meet their spouses and their kids, you know, to do the little Halloween parade where the kids are in their little outfits. And it's just like, and then to sit there and say, hey, no pressure. You're the CEO. You started this whole fucking thing. You're responsible for it, right? And then, you know, and I'm like too nice. You know, I wanted to be like friends with everybody. Hey, let's go to lunch. You want to go for a beer after work? Blah, blah, blah. And then I have to be the CEO and be like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, I can't do that. I'm a fucking creative, you know. And thankfully, I had Ariane Brousse, who I did Jazz Jackrabbit with. He was fantastic. He did so much work. I also couldn't do the sleep under my desk shit anymore, right? And we did have to crunch a little bit there,
right?
So that would be me working 9 hours, right? Whereas, you know, I'd come in at like, you know, 10:30 and like, you know, leave at 6:30 or 7, right? And, you know, there's a bar around the corner from, because we set up shop. You were in downtown San Diego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was in downtown Raleigh.
Yeah.
Because My logic
and
is downtown.
Yeah, I've seen your offices. They look kind of like ours. All these great brick old building.
Yeah,
it was great.
It looks like an old detective agency, like that old game Sam and Max Hit the Road, right?
Yeah.
And so my philosophy was that since the density in Raleigh is increasing for better or for worse, traffic. There's all these little cool bars and restaurants and coffee shops around there, and I'd go go get lunch, sometimes by myself just to think and kind of be away. I'd see a bunch of gaggle of the programmers coming back from getting pizza. And I'm just like, yes, Bond, right? And we had a great team, we had a great environment. It's just bad timing, and that's the thing is it was, if I were to speak about it, after the studio folded immediately, I was angry. I was in a very, very angry space because I wasn't used to failure.
Who are you angry with?
Overwatch, because Overwatch is a good game, but I'm a super hardcore shooter fan, and I could see the little things they did in that game, like Hanzo's his arrow was like the size of a fucking beach ball. Right. I'm sitting there going okay, if you're gonna make the arrow the size of a beach ball, at least make it flaming so I can see that with the collision box, right?
Right.
And it's a great game. It fucking crushed us. That's fine. I understand it. I respect it. I played fucking Pharah. Lauren plays Mercy. And it was also the trolls coming at me, because if you're confident in this industry, people fucking hate you.
Yes.
And they misdrew it for cockiness. And
they do. They do.
And then, as you well know, and I sound like 45, the media does twist your words, because I was asked, a journalist says to me, Gears of War was $1 billion franchise. Would you hope that Lawbreakers would be one? And I'm like, yeah, I would certainly hope Lawbreakers to be $1 billion franchise.
Right.
Headlines: Bleszinski, Lawbreakers will be $1 billion franchise. And then it almost became a meme with people tweeting me like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, I ran from the industry, right. And I decided to, get heavily involved in Broadway. Mm-hmm. I got the 2 restaurants in town, and, decided to write the fucking book. And it's been fascinating to learn, the overlaps between different industries. Like Broadway and video games actually have a lot in common,
really?
In regards to the fact that it's a miracle that they ever actually get out there.
Yeah.
Do you know that Broadway does essentially betas? They call it workshopping, right? You look at the lighting, the music, the choreography, the blocking, all of it.
Iterative.
Tie into the marketing. If you win best musical, it's fucking best musical. What's that similar to? Game of the year. Right. And then then it goes on tour and things like that. So Broadway is near and dear to my heart. My dad died when I was 15. My mother started listening to Phantom of the Opera. Okay. That was my gateway drug.
Right.
And they were doing a local production of Kinky Boots. Have you ever seen that one?
I know what it is. I've not seen it, but I've heard the album.
It's fantastic. Speaking of Born This Way, and it's a local theater company, but it's Broadway quality, right? They're nonprofit.
Okay.
And they basically got in touch with me because they wanted me to donate a little bit. It's to help make the show a thing. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I donated, and then basically went to opening night, and I brought Governor Roy Cooper and his family as my personal guests to a fucking drag show in North Carolina.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
How did you? So okay, I want to. Okay, there's just too much, Cliff. Okay, but I'm going to stay focused. So Lawbreakers. You mentioned Overwatch. I'm going to ask you about the Lawbreakers period because
the headline's going to be Bleszinski slams Overwatch.
No, well, fuck them. I don't even care anymore. I have never been, and I remain just absolutely frustrated by a lot of the Gamergate shit, but the one thing I was never a Gamergate.
Dude, that shit hit right. That shit hit right when I started my studio.
Yeah, no,
I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here going like, why the fuck did I do this? Like, really, this is the world in which we live in. That was the blueprint for 45 for what 45 did that helped get him elected.
Yeah, I think so.
Troll and meme culture, and I'm straight up about being a Democrat, and I wanted to contact people on Hillary's team, be like, hey, there's these things called memes.
Right.
Don't say stupid shit like Pokemon go to the polls, right? Like,
yeah.
So,
but yeah, but okay, so the one thing I will say that they did get right is a lot of the mainstream gaming media is a fucking nightmare. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them are just like, you know what? They're not necessarily the most noblest of folks, and I love journalists and I love that profession. But so your game comes out, a lot of people, I got mad at them on the internet. I actually made a couple videos about it where it's like,
I recall that.
It's like you're ripping off Overwatch. It's like, motherfucker, do you know? I remember when I sat with you and Lauren at Hamburger Hamlet in Los Angeles, 2-3 years before.
Oh yeah, over in Brentwood.
Yeah, and you had like your notebook, and you wouldn't open the notebook for me, which I appreciate. But he's just like, my next game is in this notebook, and it was like this was years before Overwatch was even announced. Now Blizzard was probably working on it, but
they have no idea that like you can't just make a game like, you know, for better or for worse, if you love or hate Lawbreakers, you can't like have Overwatch. I can't remember how Overwatch's release date compared to Lawbreakers, but it wasn't that fucking long.
No,
a game like, you know, Overwatch took years to make. Remember, it was going to be an MMO where you go out and do like a bunch of boring shit, and then they're like, "Fuck it, make it a first-person shooter."
Right.
Like a game like Lawbreakers took 3 years to make from inception.
Yes.
Like it's not like you snap your fingers and like, "Hey, Overwatch, boom!" Right. You can do that. You can do that shit in mobile.
And
right?
and I get they don't get it, and I guess here's my wonder is it's like. Somebody wouldn't be wrong to say Jaffe or Cliff or whoever else is taken in by this. It's like, you know, the social media stuff. It's like as I've gotten older, I've learned to understand it better. Like I will still take bait sometimes because I just like to fight. It's just fun. But ultimately, though, a lot of times you don't even know when it's real. Sometimes it's literally like I've seen my kids do it and I've got mad at them, but they're just like, but they'll literally just
You're talking about like bots or what?
No. Meaning it's like, they don't really hate you. They don't really hate me. They don't really hate Drawn to Death, but they
just want Senpai to notice them.
Yeah. Well, or they just like, let's fuck around with this guy. We get a good rise out of him. That's our night's entertainment. We got that. We got some beer. We got some edible gummies. Let's fuck around. So part of it is that. Part of it was the realization of when something really hits home for me, I shouldn't be mad about it. I should be grateful because, you know, there's that great line, if you're a pop culture junkie, I won't tell you where it's from, but you'll know where it's from, where she says, you know, it's easier to believe the bad stuff. Do you know where that's from?
Give me a second.
Yeah.
Fuck, I can't remember, honestly.
Yeah, it's from Pretty Woman. So, but it's true. It's like, but it's easier to believe the bad stuff because ultimately they're hitting on a nerve, and it's got nothing to do with them.
Okay. Audio cut out there for a second.
Oh, it's easier to believe the bad stuff because it's they're hitting on a nerve. It doesn't mean it's their.
I call it a burnt peanut, right? Like if you have a bazillion fans and somebody you know says something terrible to you, that's all you see. And we used to have that back in the Gears days when, you know, I'd have sensitive artists who go to Gaff. You know, remember when NeoGAF was the thing, right?
Yeah.
And they you know, you see all these glowing comments, but inevitably it's like, you know, it's like Godwin's law, you know, and bringing up Hitler. You know, you're never going to get universal praise about anything. There's always going to be like the German Olympic judges like one, you know?
Right.
So you can't please everybody. But the whole thing of going back to cockiness right there, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're allowed to be confident and forthright in almost every other industry, you know, politicians, musicians, actors, athletes, etc., right? YouTubers, right? But if a game designer or a developer is like that, then it's dogpile on them, right?
But do you think that's actually hurt you, or is it just annoying? Because, I mean, you're known, all your games have been successful. Lawbreakers wasn't, but that wasn't, I don't think, I mean, the number of people that you needed to make a hit for Lawbreakers was massive compared to the number of people that actually watch videos where you're being edited going, I'm making the next billion-dollar franchise, fuck this single-player bullshit or whatever.
That's also, there's a bazillion YouTube hit pieces, right?
Right. So, but I'm saying, do you think that as much as it's annoying and it hits your an emotional level, do you think that really can be factored into why the game didn't connect, or was it timing and was it marketing? Was it Nexon?
Well, so the Nexon tried, right?
Yeah.
And you know, there were a lot of great people over there, right? But the problem with Nexon US at the time was it was a bit of a revolving door because, you know, if you want to make games, you know, and you live in Los Angeles, where are you going to go? Do you want to go to Riot? Do you want to go to Sony Santa Monica? Do you want to go to Activision? Or do you want to go work on MapleStory?
Right.
And so, you know, they did produce some fantastic marketing pieces. You know, they did that bit to Spirit in the Sky, which got like 5 million views. Every comment was like, this looks great, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, I honestly think, you know, the marketing was uneven. I saw a number of slide decks where the marketing campaign was Cliff tweets about it. And it's like, dude. So the other thing is, you know, the marketing was uneven. The game took too long. You know, crowded market. Overwatch caught the zeitgeist. And also, I think the art style, dude. You know, I grew up watching anime. You know, watching Overfiend. You know, watching Fist of the North Star. You know, Wicked City, things like that. Bubblegum Crisis, right? I was a weeb before it was cool, motherfucker.
Right.
And although
right.
I didn't have any pillows I could fuck at the time. And then I forgot to notice how much anime and manga culture had taken over the youth.
Right.
Right. Whereas, and same thing with all these cosplay girls like Jess Negri. Jess Negri, she's a friend of mine, but she's fucking brilliant because she saw that opportunity. I think it all started, especially in the West, with Pokemon. Because you have this entire generation that was just like, what the fuck is this? And Pokemon was the gateway drug for so many of them. And that's what Jess knew. The first cosplay she did that gained a ton of traction was looking all hot at Comic-Con as sexy Pikachu, right? And so now you have an entire generation of young women that are leveraging that. God bless them. Making money hand over fist on OnlyFans and shit too.
Right.
There's just a lot of thirsty dudes out there.
I have Belle Delphine bathwater behind me. I do.
Dude, that girl's a fucking genius.
I don't, but I should. Just to have.
But so here's the big thing about the world in which we live now, right?
Yeah.
Loneliness is an industry.
I know,
right?
That's brilliant. Is that your line?
Yeah, I came up with that.
That's a brilliant line. It's totally true.
I mean, people just that's the thing about OnlyFans. They feel like they can connect with these women and men, because there's dudes on there too, right?
Yep.
It's the same thing with Twitch streaming, one of our Lauren's best girlfriends, Laggy Lulu, she's, fledgling streamer, she's super charismatic as a voice of a Disney princess,
right?
Huge tracts of land, as the lads say. She's just a total doll. They become best friends. They're hardcore hooked on WoW. Lauren's MO, she loves to get her girlfriends into gaming.
Okay.
She got her best friend Linja on Twitch into gaming, and they play WoW online. They play all sorts of games together.
Right.
And I'm like, hon, you're not making any money off of this. She's like, I just love having girls that I can game with.
Cool.
Because
that's cool.
When she was coming up, there weren't very many of them, and the reason she got into games in the first place, she's born in '87.
Yep.
And she had a twin brother. Right. Okay. And they got hooked on Pokemon. And, I wound up watching. I saw the Pokemon movie years ago at our beach spot, but I was pretty hammered on Jägermeister at the time. Speaking of drinking, I still drink, but I quit shots.
Okay.
But a year and a half ago. So I'm not fucking 19 anymore.
Okay.
And so we watched the entire first season of Pokemon. And it's fucking weird as shit, but it's brilliant. That IP is so fucking genius. From a gotta catch 'em all, spoiler, you never will. Right. And for every Pikachu that's brilliant, there's like Muck, which is just like some fucking artist just went like that and like, fuck it, let's do that, right? And so 1 year for Halloween I went as Pikachu, and she went as Slutty Ash.
Okay.
And this year for Halloween, but we established early in the relationship that we're going to be that couple at Halloween. We're like, come like July, we're like, okay, what are we going to do this year, right? And so this year we're going to be Team Rocket. So,
well, I will tell you, there was a girl that I went to Comic-Con with 3 years ago, and she came by the studio, and she was dressed and she looked gorgeous and she was beautiful. And you can I tell how old I am and how out of touch I am to Pokemon because I'm like, I don't know who you are. She's like, I'm Slutty Ash. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I didn't even know what the fuck it was.
So Pokemon hit in my mid-20s when the Unreal Tournament series was like in full stride, right?
Right.
And we were making so many Unreal games. My older brother Greg, I was visiting him in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and he's like, Cliff, what's next? Unreal the fucking musical? And like, which foreshadowed my getting involved in musicals. Yep. And I still want to find a way to make a Scott Pilgrim musical happen. God damn it!
I want to make a God of War musical. I wanted to make it with Jim Steinman, who just died, but I thought he would have been phenomenal. Who produced?
Well, Hades Town is about myth, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I mean, it's not touring
Orpheus.
Yet,
no, it'll be touring, I believe, later in the year. But
okay.
Orpheus, Eurydice, Hades, Persephone, right?
Oh, like, there you go.
All told by this way of this jazzy, folksy kind of. The set looks like an old French Quarter bar. It's fucking amazing.
Oh, very cool.
If you have a chance to look up "Wait for Me" on YouTube,
okay,
they do this bit with these swinging lights and. It's just fucking
let me stay focused because I know I only have you for a couple not terribly long, and I know people want to talk to you. So let me just I hate to just do questions, but I'm going to do I hate it. I'd rather just talk. I think it's more interesting, but I know people want to know things. I want to know things. Okay, so let me try to be a little bit more of a pain in the ass traffic cop. So okay. Staying on Lawbreakers for a minute, you said in the press, and I was very surprised by this. You said that you felt, and I'm not going to quote you, but you can find it online. But the gist of it is you thought it was too woke, and that you think that people didn't really want your politics, and if you were to do it again, you wouldn't have really gone down that road. And I'm curious about that.
so the failure of that game is kind of like when a plane crashes. It's multiple things at once. Usually, it's not necessarily one thing, right?
Yeah.
So the art style again. Overwatch has that kind of anime look to it, which boom, the cosplayers, the porn shows up in Pornhub for the Futa and all that shit, right? And then the timing, of course, the marketing was uneven, and also it did not help that I was so forthright about my politics. If you're Apple or Amazon, you can, say, hey, we think gender neutral bathrooms are a good idea, right? When you're an 80-person studio that has yet to have a hit game with a figurehead that is very polarizing and very inflammatory, if the top article about your game on Kotaku or Polygon is a photograph, a screenshot that I put up of a gender neutral bathroom sign saying this game's gonna have gender neutral bathrooms, it looks like fucking pandering. Right? There are ways to kind of put your politics into the game. For instance, I didn't want to over sexualize the female characters. I like games with big titties in them just as much as the next person. Like I love Dead or Alive beach volleyball back in the day, right? But we have enough of those in the fucking world, right? Like let's have a few that don't necessarily do that, right? I think that was also a factor where it was kind of looking like too like woke, right? And I was at the time I was playing with fire in regards to there was the gubernatorial election where Pat McCrory was terrible. He used that bathroom bill and all that shit. I'm like throwing money at Roy Cooper to get fucking Pat McCrory out of office, being very public about it on my Twitter. And that's the thing is I should have in hindsight been quiet until if the game had blown up, then I could have been like, okay, here's my fucking 2 cents. But that's not the time to do that with your politics, right? And there's also this debate that people have online, like, I don't want your politics in my game. I'm like, have you fucking played BioShock, you fucking idiot?
Right. The politics are going to be there. What they're really saying is, I don't want your politics in my game if they're not my politics.
You can absolutely, you can do it and be subtle about it. My problem is I wasn't subtle. Right, and I was also very brash and defiant about it.
So
and
the
thing is, I said it was a factor in the game not doing well, and then the headlines were Bleszinski says his politics are the reason Lawbreakers. I'm just like,
right. Okay, so if you get back into games, and I know you've talked a little bit about maybe getting into a smaller game or whatever you do next. Do you think you will want to and be able to be more measured because that will be sort of eye on the prize? Or what are you going to do different?
Well, it goes back to something a friend of mine told me once who's very rich. This friend said, I'd rather be rich than famous.
Okay.
The little bit of fame, helps, when, the perks of like being able to know some celebrities and shit like that, right? For some reason, all these awesome comedians follow me on Twitter, like Erica Rhodes and Seth Rogen and shit like that. And like, what the fuck? Doug Stanhope, who's one of my favorite. Listen to him, he's fucking filthy. Okay. But yeah, so the thing is what if I get back into the video game industry? It will have to be absolutely on my terms. There's a saying, don't sit at a table you can't walk away from. Yeah. And I never want to be a fucking CEO again. I want to be the key creative. And the thing is, once I finished the first draft of the memoir, the book that you mentioned earlier when we were at Hamburger Hamlet, the book came out again. I was, sitting there, pause the movie, Lauren, I have to email myself this idea.
Right.
So the thing is, I can confirm I'm working on a couple IPs.
Yeah.
Where they go, nobody fucking knows. I think both of them could be good as a game, or they also could be good as a Netflix series. I can see action figures with both of them. I could see a movie.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so real quick, I realized, my life of leisure was losing luster. I had this epiphany one day. I know a lot of motherfuckers, dude. Like, I know film producers, I know, writers, actors, directors, video game industry people, tech people, of course, Broadway, restaurants, things like that. My favorite thing to do real quick is to infiltrate new industries and figure out how they work. Like, the machinations of what it takes to capitalize a show like Hadestown. What's the key to owning a restaurant is to own the fucking land. I learned that from the, Ray Kroc and the McDonald's movie, right? And so, also, learning the publishing business and how all that works, right, in regards to books. But the thing is video games will always have my heart. But it's rough out there, man, as you know.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you is,
gamers are fucking fickle. So
I was going to say, what motivates you to think about going back into games? And I only ask because you said to me once, and I don't think, I mean, it's people know you did really well in your career financially. I mean, you had said to me once that it's nice to have fuck you money, and I love the term fuck you money because it is basically it's shorthand for don't ever sit at a table you can't walk away from. It's like, it's a wonderful way to live if you can get it. So the money's not really driving it. The desire for fame or, going back to that sort of need that was there, that seems like it's been kind of satiated and you've kind of grown out of that obsession or that need to have that. So ultimately, is it, if you were to go back into games versus finding another industry to kind of, get into and figure out, is it just the love of the moment to moment work? Because for me, I have found as I got the fame I wanted, such as it is, and it was never as big as yours, but it was enough for me to go.
Let's be clear, it's infamy with both of us.
Well, I know. Well, some of us though, some of them, but you also have great fans. I also have great fans. That's just the goddamn truth. But I got that part. I got that itch scratched. I don't have fuck you money, but I have go frack you money. Whatever. I have enough money that I can sit on my ass and do this all day. And so I realized once those two boxes were checked, people are like, Jaffe, when are you going to make another game? I'm like, I don't want to make another game right now. I really like doing what I'm doing now.
Dude, I'm not to blow smoke up here. I haven't watched any of your prior recordings. You've really honed what you're doing here. Like,
I've been doing it for a while. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're fucking good at it, dude.
Thank you. What makes you go? You've had the hits, you've had the fame, you had the money, you've won, you've had parties on boats, you fly private. Is it the moment of sitting there with your pad of paper going, oh my God, you thought I was brilliant when I came up with the reload mechanic in Gears, was brilliant. And I love when games rip it off. I wish more people ripped it off. I love that Outriders just ripped it off. But
I didn't know they did. Cool.
Yeah. But what gets you going about games now?
So, well, first off, I like indie games.
Me too.
Like, I haven't even bothered with the next generation consoles yet. I'm all about my Switch. Celeste is one of the best fucking platformers ever made. It goes back to musicals, dude. To Rent. Have you ever seen Rent?
Yes, of course.
In La Vie Boheme, he says, the need to express, to communicate, right? And, there's a saying also I put in one of the Gears art books, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. And I'm all about IP.
I got to figure it out. The opposite of war isn't peace. I don't get it.
It's creating stuff,
But why is that the opposite? You mean because that's the opposite of the worst thing? The best thing is
because war is destruction.
Got it. Okay,
right?
Got it. Okay, keep going.
And so for me, I have a couple of artists under contract for the couple of things I'm working on, and when I send them a description of what I want to see, and I'm sitting at dinner with Lauren, and I get it in my phone like, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted to do, but let's make the hair blue or something like that, right? That's one of the things I fucking love. The other thing that I absolutely love, and this isn't the main reason, but I know you've had this, the high of meeting a fan and them showing a tattoo of your game on their fucking body. That is like, fucking a high unlike any other. And I've seen tattoos of Jazz Jackrabbit. I've seen tattoos of, Unreal Tournament, tons of Gears. It became a thing, Gears Inc. And even a few folks out there did get Lawbreakers tattoos. If you reach out to me, I'll pay for the removal if you want.
That's serious.
And just to make something from nothing. And, I'm working on another project that I can't really talk about right now with a very, very important producer type. And he says we sometimes just kind of will things into existence.
I love that phrase. Yes, it's the only way it ever gets done. It's the only fucking way it ever gets done.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to I really don't want to work with the old guard of publishers if I were to make something. Mm-hmm. As the studio is crumbling, we had this game idea that was essentially ninjas riding dragons fighting zombies.
I've seen the concept art. It's great.
Yeah, and we did the rounds. We went to EA. We went to 2K. We went to Activision, all of them, right? It was a whirlwind West Coast tour, right? We're asking for about 40 mil, right? In the grand scheme of budgets for games, it's not that much, right? Yeah. I brought Ariane, my COO, with me the whole trip. I did the pitch. It was a great pitch deck. He did the biz part of it and all. And then, a couple weeks after that, he had lunch with Tim Sweeney, and Tim was like, hey, I'm going to back up the money truck. Come to Epic and let's do Fortnite for mobile. And Ariane saw the writing on the wall of the studio. He knew the studio that was circling the drain, right. And he did what any man with a couple kids in a family would do. He took the offer, and I was fucking. If I had seen him, after that, I would have fucking stabbed him in the dick. Right. But once a few months, like went on from it, I got a little distance from it. I'm like, of course he fucking would. He's a brilliant guy. He had to take care. He had to take care of his fucking family.
Right.
Right. If I see him, in public, I'm going to give him a big old hug and thank him for all the years of hard work he put in.
Of course. And I loved what you guys started with. I know you didn't sustain it because you were making a goddamn video game, but I loved when I first went on the Boss Key website. It looked like you guys were going for a game developer, but you were also wanting to be almost like a content creator. There were like shows and there were regular, it was a very neat, social way to connect with the fans. I know, it was cool. But okay, so
that's the world in which we live now.
I know, and I love that world. I absolutely love it. And I'll tell you what, the indie stuff, I know a lot of gamers give me shit, but I mean, I still love big budget games. I'm playing Returnal right now. It's phenomenal, blah blah blah. But
that's the one my wife's fucking right now.
It's great. But the indie games, there's just so much more creative freedom, and there's so much more interesting shit happening in that space. So you leave Epic. I don't think anybody ever really understood why, and it doesn't. The bigger question about that,
dude, it's because I've said this in multiple interviews. It's because I got fuck you money, and then I woke up one day and I no longer have to sit there and have some random programmer and tell me why he doesn't like my creative idea.
Oh, so it was literally, it wasn't like this is no longer a good marriage. It was just more like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, I knew the world was changing, right? I knew the kind of games they were going to make were changing. Everybody had a huge hard on for League of Legends. I respect the fuck out of League of Legends, but it's not my kind of game.
Okay.
Right. And so that's where the whole ability thing kind of came from, for Overwatch and a lot of things, coming out of Dota and things like that. And that's why, we wound up with abilities and Lawbreakers.
Or Twisted Metal. But anyway, yeah, sure, I understand.
Did Twisted Metal actually have...
That's all it was. That's all it was. It was the first hero shooter. What do I get for it? Nothing.
It actually fucking was.
You goddamn right. You goddamn right, Clifford. All right, so
it's actually real quick. One of my pitches for the next Unreal Tournament, should they ever get around to doing it, is essentially that onslaught mode from Unreal Tournament 2004.
With the skateboard thing, or that you were floating around on the...
Yeah, that was UT3. UT3 is okay. But UT 2004 is where, one of my favorites to work on with the tanks and the little hover things and things like that. But you have, all the heroes are essentially robots that then transform into the vehicles, right? So it's kind of like... Oh,
cool. Okay, yeah.
Like, nice. Like what's the competitor to Transformers these days, right? Like GoBots came and went.
No, and there's not a good video game Transforming. They're Platinum.
There's a couple solid ones, yeah.
Yeah, they're solid, but no one's really cracked that nut when it comes to okay, that's the definitive Transformers game. So I think that's great. Okay, let's talk about Lawbreakers.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm only rushing, but dude, look, I wasn't kidding when I said all these interviews usually go about 3 or 4 hours. But I know you got to go, and I know people want to talk to you. So that's the only reason I'm like a bull in a china shop, because there's so much to talk to you about. So Lawbreakers, not Lawbreakers, Fortnite. So I remember hearing about Fortnite the first time because you pitched it to the world. And I was like, okay, sounds kind of cool. I'm not really into base building, but whatever. I remember the first trailer of Lawbreakers came out, and me and the guys at Bartlett Jones.
You mean Fortnite or
Fortnite? Sorry, am I saying Lawbreakers? Okay, Fortnite. Yeah. I remember when you pitched that on stage. It might have been an E3, and you showed a trailer. And then I remember the launch trailer came out, and we were at Bartlett Jones watching the Fortnite trailer and going, we can never compete with this. There was so much content and so many systems and all this shit. And then it comes...
the first version of it took like 6+ years.
Oh, I believe it. But, you know how it is. When you're a small team, though, the audience doesn't care. You're still competing with these people.
And then they play PUBG, and they're like, Pivot. The funny thing is that game was supposed to have versions in it early, but they actually decided to do like more of like a co-op thing.
I mean, end of the day, they buy the fun. I mean, that's what's great about seeing Among Us take off, Fall Guys take off, PUBG take off. Fortnite, even though I know it wasn't cheap, it did not look cheap. It didn't look like it was a Naughty Dog game. It looked like a nice game. But anyway, in terms of
it was stylized, right?
Right, and which is less expensive than going photoreal. At least that's what I have found. So, but anyway, so you pitched to the world. The trailer looked great. The launch trailer looked great, and you had left somewhere in there. And obviously, the initial Fortnite that wasn't battle royale kind of didn't set the world on fire, but
save the world.
Right, but then whether or not. Was Battle Royale always a plan, or that was you had left? Mustard was there, who I almost hired for God of War 2, by the way, to direct that.
He's fantastic.
Wonderful fucking guy. And I was telling somebody the other day, imagine feeling like you dodged a bullet by not taking the job to direct God of War 2. And he did. But I mean, so ultimately, Battle Royale, Fortnite, Was that just like a Hail Mary for those guys, or was it always?
Again, I only worked on Fortnite for like 6 months, right before the 10-cent money hit, and I was like, later.
How much of your essence is in that game then? Is it not much, or are you?
I approved the building system. I approved the art style, and of course with Chris Perner, the art director.
Okay.
And I'm fairly certain I was pretty significant with coming up with the name. There's a reason why it's spelled NITE because NIGHT. There's a reason why Mortal Kombat's spelled with a K.
Right.
You go to get the trademark, and it's like, oh, okay, this has been a Parker Brothers board game from 1950, right? Like, fuck, we can't do this, right?
Right.
But yeah, so like the game, I saw the potential when I worked on it that brief period, right? And then it just took years, and then like we thought about maybe a versus, red team versus blue team type of thing, but it wasn't until apparently people at Epic saw the success of PUBG. And it was like, hey, how about we have this great build system, why not merge the two? And then boom, the game exploded. And I can't imagine being an Epic at the time when the scramble to get the servers, to get the infrastructure, to get the support, to make it a live product, which they've mastered.
I will. I will
the art
tell
of a
you,
season, right?
It's amazing. No, it's amazing. And I will tell you, I mean, my kids were nuts about it for a while. But I was in Vegas with my family 3 years ago now. And it hasn't been since Pac-Man in like 81 that I have seen a video game. I mean, it eclipsed Minecraft, it eclipsed Mario in terms of the amount of swag and merch and just culture. It was infused everything. It was everywhere.
So that was a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, to be honest.
I was going to ask you, how did that, and I guess there's the answer. It was a tough pill to swallow.
Well, Tim and Mark took fucking amazing care of me at Epic. Right. But when I see something like that blow up and I'm not going to see a dime off of it, little tiny part of me is like, I was there for the Genesis, but I did make the conscious decision to walk away. So I had to be comfortable with that. But, my wife and I, we had a whole year of just fucking off. Right. It's like, what do you want to do today? Let's go into town. Let's go to the comic shop. Let's get a steak. Let's have a few drinks. Right. And, we do this thing that we call Mall Mondays. Right. And we go to the Crabtree Valley Mall. And there's a little restaurant there called the Red Monkey, right?
Okay.
We go there, have a couple drinks and a nibble, and then we'd fuck around at the mall. Like I had a whole period in my 30s where I fucking hated the mall. Right. And now that I'm in my 40s, it's like, it is all about commerce and it is kind of stupid, but let's pop into a few of these spots and see what's up. And we go into Think Geek, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this was right when Fortnite was fucking, with the pinata fucking weapon and everything like that. And I had to sit there and Lauren's like, don't get triggered. And for a while, I called it the F word. And then, I grew up and got over it, I more power to them. Right. But, I think Tim is, gunning for the metaverse. And I think a lot of people are just trying to get that Ready Player One thing going.
I have never met Tim Sweeney. I'm on a couple of message boards with him, and I'll tell you something. That was fascinating to me. The Apple. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole Apple thing so much, but what was fascinating to me is Tim always has come off to me in the few interviews I've seen or interfaced with him on message boards as sort of his profile picture. He seems just like this mild-mannered, geeky dude who just kind of got fortunate because he was smart. But when you read those fucking emails from the Apple Epic thing, I'm just like, he's a son of a bitch. I'm like, my God. I mean,
so that's the thing about Tim. And he seems like, oh, gee, wow, but he's the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
And he can be an absolute fucking bear.
Yeah.
Like I've seen him. Like I remember way back in the day when Epic had like an office in Rockville, Maryland.
Right.
That was physically selling the shareware out of there. And I was sitting in a board meeting. And somebody had mentioned like that they weren't making money. Like, so he's like, why have this space where, we're acting as a publisher ourselves? Like we can partner with GT Interactive. And I remember him just being like, shut the fuck down. Shut it all the fuck down. Right. Like, he's, I call it the Teddy Grizzly. Right.
Okay.
It's like,
that's fair. That makes sense.
I used to be friends with Thomas Tull, who was the CEO of Legendary Pictures. Yeah, fantastic.
Are you not friends? Did he die? Why are you?
No, we lost contact.
Oh, okay,
right?
Okay.
And we were friends, but there's the way that Hollywood works is that, like unless you're actually really, really good friends with somebody, it's usually like, what can this person do for me eventually?
Yeah, I've understood.
And so I wasn't working, so I lost touch with him. But Thomas Tull had that kind of like, oh, gee whiz thing about him, and Jay Wilbur also had that, where Jay seemed like this really soft, nice guy, but when push comes to shove, he turns into the grizzly.
Right.
And in business, that is, it's soft versus hard skills.
I saw you said something about your regrets at Boss Key, saying that, and you kind of mentioned it earlier about seeing the programmers coming back from lunch, but where you said that you look at it now and maybe you shouldn't have, you should have been more comfortable being more, I guess, this weren't your words, but I forget your words, but alpha. You should have been more comfortable planting a flag and saying, I know you guys are really into MOBAs right now, fellas, but we're doing an arena shooter. Because didn't you want to do an arena shooter to begin with? And they kind of moved you away from that?
Yeah, I remember, I think it was Matt Fishman and Josh Parker, two fantastic gameplay programmers, right? I walked into their office one day and they're like, I think we need abilities. And I'm like, okay. And there's a thing, where you want to give people enough rope.
You do,
especially with creatives, because they're game designers as well as programmers, right? But for lack of a better term, enough rope to hang themselves, right? And so my thing is, I wanted to empower the creatives. At some point, I wound up with four other game designers in the studio, and so I lost control creatively. Yeah. It still turned out to be, in hindsight, I give the game an 8. I think it was a very good game, but it's not necessarily what the initial vision was that I wanted. I wanted an arena shooter that essentially was like the Inception hallway fight scene, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And but then we went the hero route, right? And for better or for worse, it was, again, game fail, but it was a decent game. So at some point, I lost creative control of the game. And then I wasn't running the company because Artyom was doing all that fucking work because he works his ass off. I got to the point where there wasn't a lot for me to do at the fucking studio, dude. Oh, yeah. I'd come in, do some emails, go to lunch, sometimes by myself, sometimes with the employees, come back, do some more emails, do a play test or two. And then towards the end of the day, I'd have a couple hours to fuck off on Reddit. Of course, I'd make the rounds, right? That's one of the things I always loved is first off, coming to the office. Oh my God, can you believe what happened on Game of Thrones?
Right.
I
know.
I'm not watching it until he releases Winds of Winter, right? And then to the point where, like I'm looking over somebody's shoulder, like, oh my God, can we give that guy bigger boots, or can we give this? Let's take that gun and tweak it. Yeah. That's one of the things I'm pretty damn good at, right? Mm-hmm. There's all the little things I do miss about game development. It's like, I think the FOV we wound up shipping with in Lawbreakers was 90, I believe. But I came in one day and got a new build, and that was also my favorite thing is to see all the check-ins. Like, ooh, what tasty little toys do I get to play with, right?
It's Christmas, yeah.
It's awesome. But programmers like to pull a fast one on you. I'm sure you've had them do this, right? Where I fire up the build, the FOV had been changed to 80.
Right.
And I walk into Fishman's office. I'm like, who changed the fucking FOV? And Matt looks at me like, and I'm like, dude, this is not my first rodeo, man, right? It's like, and the same thing used to happen with Gears in regards to things breaking, right? I go on like a 5-day European press tour, right? I'd come back and I go in the playtest lab. Marcus should be like, this much of the screen, right? And then I come back and he's like this, and I'm like, and then it's like bobbing too much and shit. I'm like, okay, who fucked this up? The camera's fucked up, and then I come back and like, it was a constant fight with the blood particle effects. Because the Gears 1 blood particles, it looked like juicy fruit, like bubblicious shit, like flying out of it, right? And the latter ones were still pretty good, but that first one was very iconic, right? Mm-hmm. And I come back and some particles would have been removed or something like that. And I'm like, I called it the suck fairy. Like who sucked the fun out of this? Who made the game suck more, right? And I'd have to sit there and be in the lab every fucking day babysitting, right? So you have to be hands-on at a high level, but also at an intimate level, You
do, and it is the hardest thing in the world to run a company and give people that freedom they need and still be able to do your job as a creative. I always say I was the loneliest guy on the God of War team because it wasn't that no one liked me, but I could never care about being friends with these people. I ultimately am friends with a number of them now, but the day-to-day was, I'm like, I have to be a slave.
See, that's what you did right that I did wrong.
Well, here's what you can do to fix it, because ultimately I'm going to tell you, if you ever start something new and you are looking for a phenomenal producer, because what I eventually learned was those really are two different roles. And I know you know that now, but it's like, I need to be the guy who is only a slave to the player. The only friend I care about is the guy who's gotten the game home or downloaded it. That's my only friend right now.
So that was the thing at Bosky. I didn't have Rod Ferguson.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Rod Ferguson is the best producer I've ever. Tanya Watson's fantastic too, but Rod Ferguson was a fucking badass. He's one of the main reasons Gears was as great as it was.
Yeah.
And the thing is, some of the fans are like, "Oh, come back and make Gears great." And 5 and 6 were good, right?
I liked. I don't know if there's a 6. Is there?
I think
5 is. I like 5.
4 and 5. Sorry.
Yeah. 5 is good. 5 is good. I liked it. I didn't play 4.
But I can still feel there's a tiny little bit of that. Lee Perry, Chris Pern, and myself missing it, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing was playing Gears 4. There was a lot of the ideas for Gears 3 that rotted like shut down, like the little pill bugs things and the drop shot and things like that. And so for that franchise, in my honest opinion, I was talking to Lee Perry about it. Again, Lee was, my right-hand man creatively with, game design stuff. He came up with so many awesome things. I go in his office, he prototypes something, be like, that's awesome, let's try this too. Is to, do, after they do 6, basically like do like what they did with God of War and find a way to kind of like rejigger the franchise and kind of, breathe new life on it. And as, as Phil Spencer from Microsoft would say, move the needle.
Dude, right? I'll tell you what, let me tell you, I have so much I want to talk to you about. If I can ever convince you to come back on later, because I want to get to some chats and I want to get to phone calls because we have 30 minutes left.
Just make sure to try and remember what we talked about here because I can't remember what I talked about.
I'll remember it all, but if you're willing to come back, I would love to have you come back for a part 2 because
let's see how this is received.
It's received brilliantly, Clifford. I don't give a fuck. The only way it's going to ever work is if we don't care how it's received and we care if we're having a good conversation. I'm enjoying the conversation. If you are, you should come back, and if anybody else wants to watch, that's up to them.
All right, I'll come back.
All right, I appreciate it. All right, let me get the super chats, then we're going to go right to the phone calls. All right, give me a second, you guys. If I miss one, hit me up on Twitter and I'll email Cliff. Ricardo Estevez, he says, just to support, you two are great. Thank you, sir. Raphael says, Jaffe, big ups for getting Cliffy B, which he doesn't like being called anymore. Do you care? Cliffy B.
I actually go by Clifford now. Clifford. Because I'm fucking 46.
Okay. So for him, Jeff K wants to know when you will return to the SA forums. I don't know what SA is.
Oh my God. The Something Awful forums.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Something Awful forums was the cool, wacky internet before the internet became what it is. It was essentially the blueprint for it.
After after Fat Babies, but before Reddit.
Exactly. So it was, Photoshop Fridays. The threads were like rated. And you get gold, right? Things like that. It was the genesis of all that cool stuff.
Okay, so maybe are they still active?
I don't know, but I'm fairly certain I said some pretty terrible things in my 20s on there. So
I was going to ask you about something that somebody posted, and I was just like, because I want to talk about cancel culture with you, and I want to talk about all that, but we'll do it later. Okay, Zero Signal says, thank you, buddy. He says, I just wanted to thank Cliff for Lawbreakers. Platinumed it on PS4. No, was it a PS4? Yeah.
Yeah, always, on PS4.
And always felt like it didn't get the credit it deserved. So there you go. That was from Zero Signal.
Well, I've publicly admitted that it was a mistake to do PlayStation. We should have put it on Xbox.
I heard you say that. I mean, I played it. I was terrible at it, but I loved it. I just couldn't play it for sure.
Well, it was so fast and vertical that it didn't translate that well to the console, honestly.
Yeah, with I needed the mouse. It's true. Davakin says, Cliff B, thank you, Gears of War, man. Thank you for Gears of War. Lots of amazing days and memories. Big hug from Puerto Rico. Rob Jones says, thank you, buddy. Respect Cliffy B or Clifford for opening up, man. Loads of people need to do the same thing. It'll help a lot of people in the long run. Enjoy the rest of the week, both of you. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Quick pause. So my wife and I love the YouTube series Hot Ones.
Haven't seen
it.
Right?
Oh, so it's basically this guy. He's got a great interview style, much like yours. His people do their fucking homework, right? So what he does is he takes celebrities and public figures, and they have 6 or 8 wings of increasing Scoville spiciness, right?
Oh! I have seen this. Yeah.
And so there's the one called The Bomb, right? And that fucking breaks every celebrity. So we actually bought that, and we go to restaurants and bars with toothpicks and be like, hey, you want to try this? And 3, 2, 1, and boom, gets everybody. But the thing that's brilliant about that show is that when you see a public figure, a musician, whatever, in an interview or acting, you're getting the version of them that they want you to get.
Yes.
And when you see them crying and drinking milk and swearing, then you actually get the real version of them.
Right.
So it's kind of the behind the scenes thing. Right?
Well, and that's why I never talk. I've reached out to people and said, come do this show. And they're like, okay, let me put you in touch with PR. I'm like, no, I'm not talking to PR. You want to come do the show? Do the show. I don't give a fuck.
Well, I mean, if they're media savvy, there's ways to talk about personal things and professional things without going too far.
There are, but I don't think the audience gives a fuck anymore about, I could be wrong, but let's put it this way. This is a better answer. I don't give a fuck anymore about the PR answer. It's like you can sell your game because it's a good game. You want to come on the show and you want to talk about your new game or your new book or your new movie or whatever. Awesome. If it's great, I'll fucking come all over the goddamn thing. But I'm not gonna. I mean, So anyway, okay. All right.
Jaffe doing an 8 roper on it.
A what? Oh, I don't know. I'm 50. You're 47. That's a little before my time.
It's jizz ropes. It's
Okay. All right. Fair enough, Cliff. I don't listen. I'm going to be honest with you, Cliff. This is the kind of real talk we get here on whatever this thing's called. I've sired children. I've pleased the ladies in my time. I've watched some pornos sometimes, and I've seen men come, and it's like Niagara Falls. I don't understand it. I don't know how they make that much. I don't know how they clean it up. I would want nothing to do with that. So let's
Dude, there's this real quick about porn. There's this thing where I think it was UberFacts said, like, you know, what are some online services that are free that people should leverage more? Okay. And I replied on Twitter and I said Pornhub. And some dude replied and said, was it Cliff, you're elected official? And I replied and corrected him, erected. And we're in the world where, like, if there's a funny exchange on social media, it gets, like, you know, copied and pasted everywhere, and it wound up becoming this like sweaty Buddha or something, like with 3 million followers. So I'm getting like DMs from people like, you made this, you know, like meme aggregators like Fat Jew and things like that, right? And like, I thought it was a funny joke, but surprise, people watch porn.
Yeah, exactly, totally. Okay, here we go. We're gonna bring in your first caller. I implore you guys, please keep your calls quick because Cliff doesn't have a lot of time, and I want to get to all you guys. Thank you very much for waiting. So
honestly, Cliff, Dave, we could probably push to 5:15.
Okay, what is it now? It's 4:40 right now.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go through them. You answer as long as you want to answer. You give the answer that you feel is a good one.
Okay. Are we swapping to Discord?
In one moment, we got one more super chat. Clifford, how crazy were the E3 parties back in the day from Real Radic?
They were crazy, but so the thing about E3, going back to the drinking thing, is E3 is what in video game conventions are what actually turned me into a drinker. Because, you know, you have like 3 straight nights of nonstop parties. There's a reason why rehab is such a thing in Hollywood, because something happens, throw a party. Then you add in a bunch of introverts into a room who don't necessarily know how to interact. You add alcohol, and of course, inappropriate shit, you know, was happening at the time, right? And so it's one of those things like I loved working the room. You know, I'm an introvert who has to try to be an extrovert. Then when you add alcohol, it's like, I'm Mr. Meeseeks, look at me, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, depending on the parties, you know, notch through these crazy parties, and which I fucking hated because it was like, you couldn't even talk to anybody, right? I'm like, I was in my 30s. I'm like, I'm too old for this shit, right? But yeah, there were some bangers back in the day.
Yeah, I went to the main ones, but I never. I got drunk a lot at some of the parties, which was fun, but I never had any crazy adventures.
Well, the thing, real quick, the thing about those parties is, you know, my alcohol tolerance was so high that I could be around somebody who'd had like 2 drinks and they'd spill all their fucking secrets to you.
Oh, that's
and so
brilliant.
they're like, oh, I got that intel now, you know, like that kind of stuff, right?
It's like spy work. It's brilliant. Okay, this is Bookster19 is coming in to talk to good Sir Cliff. Yeah, we'll mute ourselves on this and we'll go over there. Right. So let me do that real quick.
Right.
Okay, Cliff, you can hear me. Bookster, are you there?
Yes, I am.
You were talking to good Sir Cliff Bleszinski. Rob the mod, let me know if the audio is bad. I would appreciate it. But go ahead, sir. Go.
All right. 2 questions real quick. How do you think the Coalition is handling the Gears of War franchise? And whose idea was it for a Locust of War?
The Locust of what?
Civil War.
Locust. Oh, the lore? The lore, yeah, just the audio.
This Civil War between Lambent and Locust.
Yeah, so that was how the franchise was evolving. I mean, I could talk about this for days, so I speak fast, so bear with me. So how the Coalition's handling it, I don't know, but I mean, apparently some fans are upset because almost every other day somebody's tweeting me, like, expecting me to be some sort of magic fucking bullet with them. That's not how it works. And again, I said at the top of the hour that, you know, I would consult, but they never reached out. I'm like, okay, like, even if I like, you know, gave my 2 cents on a build, you know, once a month, and, you know, I came on stage with Phil Spencer, you know, the fans, it would be a great perception thing, right? But, you know, it hasn't happened. If they were to reach out, I'd be open to it. And so the thing about, you know, the whole origins of the franchise was, you know, we were big fans of Lord of the Rings at the time, and we saw the Locust as the Urkai. And we wanted an intimate combat because we were tired of shooters where you were like, you know, shooting these little pixels. It was a big pet peeve of Lee Perry and I. And so I wanted to put the Locust underground because, you know, I was tired of aliens from above. I remember sitting there with a programmer in his office going, how about they come from underground? And he looks at me and goes, I don't get it. And I'm like, what don't you get? He's like, how did they get there? I'm like, that's part of the mystery. We'll figure that out as we go.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the Lambent is you fought Locust for 2 games. You know, we teased in this kind of infection, and we all collectively came up with this idea of it kind of being almost like zombies. And so it's kind of like, you know, the Halo model. You know, you have the humans, you have the Covenant, and then you have the Flood. So it's like the same thing with StarCraft. You know, you have the Terrans, the Protoss, and the Zergs. So the Zergs are the beastly ones, you know, the Locust. The Protoss are the weird ones. That's the Lambent and the humans, right? So, like, you know, normal, beastly, weird. That's often a good cycle for, you know, intellectual property.
I was at the Comic-Con you guys were at in 2011. It was you and Rob Ferguson for Gears 3. Yeah. And it was the one where you walked everybody out to see the Gears of War motorcycle.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought the fans you guys made for Gears, they were so hardcore. I mean, it was phenomenal how much they loved it.
They were passionate. It was fucking diverse too. Yeah. When I was on Jimmy Fallon and I got bumped by fucking Justin Bieber and I had a couple extra days in New York City.
Right.
I did a tweet up as we were working on Gears 3 and I hadn't decided to kill Dom. And so, I just a random flash mob, a couple hundred kids showed up, took photos, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you think's going to happen in Gears 3? And this guy's like, Dom's going to die. I'm like, why? He goes, shit's got to happen. I'm like, shit does have to happen. I don't know where I was going with that. I lost my train of thought.
You have good fans.
The fans, yeah. The tattoos, and then also a lot of military fans. That's talking to a lot of the military people. Like Gears is removed enough from like your traditional Call of Duty, so it doesn't trigger their PTSD. Gears actually helped a lot of vets. Because Lord knows our government doesn't do a good enough fucking job of it.
I know they don't. And yeah, the fact that I don't know if it should be like Starship Troopers, but the fact that you can serve, and I'm as progressive as you get. And I don't like war, and I don't like all these bullshit wars we do.
Always follow the money.
But I know. But if you put on the uniform and you go fight for this country, raise my taxes, motherfucker. You should never have a homeless vet on the street, ever. It's ridiculous. But I was going to say
it's so prevalent over the years that it's a cliche at this point.
It's horrible. You guys had a big biker gang contingent, didn't you? I saw a bunch of people.
I wasn't aware of that.
Maybe they were cosplaying. I just remember seeing a bunch of bikers walking around with all kinds of Gears of War shit, and I was like, oh, I didn't know bikers were into that. But all right, this is Anari is coming in, sir. You were talking to Cliff Bleszinski. Go, bud. Anari. What's up, buddy?
Hello.
Go.
Hold on.
I don't want.
No, I was going to ask Cliff Bleszinski. This is just, I don't know. Can I ask a couple questions?
Quick. Just go. Go.
Well, my first question is about the industry. What would be the advice you'd give to somebody who's just thinking of starting off, making games, who has like no experience, basically like starting from just the idea? What would be the best like first piece of advice you could give them?
Well, what I've always said is if you want to be a chef, you'd start cooking and you'd burn your first few dishes. Unreal Engine is easier to use than ever. I have no experience with Unity, but one thing that Tim Sweeney realized many, many years ago is I'm not that technical of a person. And if you can have a creative and make tools that, get that creativity out of them, that's a powerful thing. That's why the Unreal Engine is so huge these days. In addition to, great graphics and huge feature set and things like that. But, just download it and just start teaching yourself. I was self-taught. I was fortunate that, I made text adventures first. I used the adventure construction set. I made games in Windows 3.1, like I said, in Visual Basic, platformers, then I find the right people to partner with. Once you start getting some traction, be very, very careful, read everything before you sign. And again, be careful who you get in bed with in regards to, business and everything like that. And just stick with it. But also have a backup plan if possible. And network like a motherfucker. Like, if you have a cool prototype of something, you tweet it to me. I do still read my ads in spite of the fact that I have trolls. If it looks cool, I'll quote the tweet, be like, this looks neat,
Yeah, and my other question was more about something you said. It probably was in passing, so I don't know if you necessarily thought about it, and it's okay. Anyways, my question was, you said that you generally see it as a good thing if people are capital. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said that there is an industry around loneliness, right? Do you see this as being necessarily a bad or a harmful thing? Because I think for many people that actually damages like social connections and people's ability to interact in a social environment. But I don't know.
I think it's like social media. It's good and it's bad. And the thing is, you have a lot of lonely people out there that can connect with somebody on a social media platform or OnlyFans and things like that. There's a chance that that could inhibit them from actually going out into beat space. And, the lonely guy, with his anime pillow and actually, learning how to converse and meet a girl, right? And so I honestly think, man, you could write a book on this sort of thing. There's probably already some out there, right? But, it's the people in Silicon Valley realize that, the people need a connection, but that connection happens to be online. And sometimes the in-person space is lost. You know, my wife and I, she gets upset because, you know, every day around 5:30 or so, I call my car service and we'll go to like, you know, a bar or restaurant, you know, and sit near the bar and have what I call the threesome of conversation with the bartender. And she's like, "Oh, you just love being around people." I'm like, "I do. We sit in this big old fucking house all day long. I need that certain amount of interaction, right?"
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You cut out. Is that a problem on my end, or hold on?
No, Jaffe's cutting out for me.
Sorry, I was letting you. I didn't want to interrupt. Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Thanks, man. The loneliness thing. I was going to ask you. Oh no, I was just going to say that ultimately it's all going to be robots anyway. I mean, they're you know, no so you know. All right.
Black Mirror.
Exactly. That was a freaky one, man. The fucking Dead came back as a robot. I loved it. All right. This is please you're on with Cliff Bleszinski. Please.
Hello?
What's up, man?
Hey, yeah, I had a question for Cliffy.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, so a few years ago, when like the whole Lawbreakers situation happened, I tweeted you very politely asking you for a refund, and you proceeded to call me an asshole and then block me. What was that about?
Honestly, I was very hurt at the time in regards to the game failing, and I was lashing out, to be frank. And honestly, I'm sorry for that. But you know, I couldn't exactly pull a CD Projekt Red. The company had run out of money. The remaining funds were used to, you know, fund health insurance and severance for my employees, who I felt like were my family at the time. So honestly, I apologize for that. But honestly, if that happens in the future, like getting a refund from a game that fails is very unlikely, unfortunately. That's the way I should have explained it to you, so I apologize.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, man. I appreciate your apology, and have a good one.
Yeah, I wanted to find a way to unblock you, though, so I don't know what...
if you want to DM me, I can tell Cliff who you are, and he can unblock you if you want.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, please.
Cool, man.
All right. This is Pizza Delivery. Pizza Delivery, you are talking to Clifford Bleszinski. Maybe you are. What's up, bud?
It's really hard to not do the Tucker Carlson face when they're asking the question like...
Yeah, I know. That face, man. That guy needs to... Yeah, somebody needs to... I know. Pizza Delivery ain't talking. Let's bring in... Oh, there we go. Okay, this is Random Moose Brains. Random. It's Jaffe and Clifford.
The handles will never not make me laugh.
I know. Random, can you hear me?
Whoa, yeah, I can.
What's up, man?
That.
Go. Talk to Clifford.
Hey, Cliff. Quick question regarding, this is a question my friend had. Regarding the first Unreal tournament, did you guys use references for your maps?
Not really. Like the first Unreal and the first Unreal tournament was a bunch of level designers just making shit up and throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. And, you know, with Unreal Tournament, I was the one like largely responsible for like, you know, curating that whole thing, right? And then I had that Cliffy B's ownage back in the day, where and then a bunch of the level designers to this day that are still at Epic, like, you know, were people that were like a 16-year-old German kid that I paid $500 for his map and things like that. And so yeah, no, there's no concept art. We were just completely and totally fucking winging it. You could get away with it largely back then. With a AAA game these days, no fucking way.
That's
Maybe
right.
with an indie game you could.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Random.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is...
Pizza Delivery said he was muted.
Oh, here we go. All right, Pizza Delivery, go.
Everybody deserves a second chance.
I think so, but he still ain't talking. Come on, baby, get in there. I'll bring somebody else on, but I'll keep you in the show.
The clock's ticking.
God damn it. This is Ricardo Estevez is on. Ricardo, you're talking to me and Cliff. What's up, bud?
Hey, how are you guys? First of all, mad respect for your work, Clifford. So I'm looking at two amazing game developers. Both one is 50, you're 46, 47. Yep. Okay. So if you look at the music industry and the movies, people. Directors and artists, they get to work in that area, in those areas for a long time.
I know where you're going with this. I've had the same thought. Keep going.
Okay, and I'm wondering, since video games are so young compared to the other medium, why don't we see you guys and others like you, like Ken Levine has been away for a long time, etc. Do you think you guys can add something with your experience, with your age to the gaming industry?
Well,
or is this saying?
So I know where you're getting at. So here's the thing. Are you familiar with the term ageism, Ricardo?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, that's very prevalent in Silicon Valley, and there's a fair amount of that in video games. Whereas the people who have the purse strings, it's like we can have this like 40 to 50-year-old game designer who's had multiple hits under their belts, but they're going to require a steep salary, a big chunk of ownership. They actually have lawyers to read our contracts. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Or they could get somebody who's young and hungry, who's willing to work for peas, and willing to sleep under their desk, and then take the middle 30-year-old who's got to be the rock star game creator. But the thing is you look at like Martin Scorsese, George Miller made Mad Max Fury Road, and he's fucking way up there, right? That's the other thing about video games is it's very mentally intensive. It's fucking exhausting. And then you add in the hours, you add in the politics, things like that. And you hit a certain point at a certain age where if you've made enough money, you're like, yeah, no, I'm good, been there, done that. That's not to say, again, I wouldn't rule out considering doing something, but it's very, very prevalent. You don't see a lot of old game designers in this industry because people either get burnt out and they just peace out and move to another industry, or they get enough money that they don't have to do it anymore, or they just flat out lose the passion. I mean, I was making games since I was 17 years old, So will it change, Ricardo? I have no idea.
I think, thanks, Ricardo. I appreciate it. It's a great question, man. Thank you for calling, bud.
Sure.
All right, man. Always talk to you.
See
the interesting thing about that for me, because I've thought about that as well, is a lot of it, too, is unlike movies, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but unlike movies or TV or any of the other arts, Broadway, games can benefit at a product level from great ideas and great tuning and great pacing and all those things that make a game great. But gamers don't seem to be as, and I don't know if it's the price point, it may be the price point, but gamers don't seem to be as susceptible to the same things. Like in video games, if you can make great graphics and great sound and a great special effects reel that happens to be interactive, you can make a shit ton of money. It doesn't mean that someone like Tim Schafer can't make a brilliant masterpiece, or someone like Jonathan Blow or someone like you or whatever, but it does seem that the money doesn't get rewarded at the same level by the audience in video games as it is in other mediums. And I don't know if you've noticed that, but I think that's, like you said, always follow the money. I mean, end of the day, I think if Kojima, I think, is older than both of us. If Death Stranding had been a massive, huge zeitgeisty hit, he would still be like, oh shit, I'm not saying he's out of the picture, but he would be able to write even more of his own ticket. I think part of it is just the gamers, they respond to different things. And even though our stuff looks like movies and looks like TV, I don't think the audience responds in the same way.
A good movie is a good movie. A good book is a good book. The rules change every 2 to 3 years with video games, as you know, right? Yeah. So the thing is just like, in keeping up with that, you have to relearn a new rule set, in regards to, like, how do we monetize this? We're going to go data driven. We're going to analyze the data. We need to figure out user engagement. We need to figure out new user acquisition, all this kind of shit, right? And it's like, holy fuck, like, as you get older, it becomes harder to learn new shit. Yeah. Right. It's like scientifically proven, like, as you get older, you also get set in your ways, right? It's like, it's silly, but I go back to the Brady Bunch movie where, like, the dad was the architect and he was doing all these other projects. The only thing he was making was the same exact fucking house, right? Yep. And so, new mechanics, things like that. And you add in the fact that gamers are fickle, and it's like, it's the perfect storm of why you're not seeing, well, also, again, being still in the grand scheme of things, a relatively young industry, right?
Right, that's fair. Okay, I'm going to try pizza delivery one more time. It may be on my end. Let's see. If not, I'll bring in somebody else. Pizza, are you in? Can you hear us? There you go.
Pizza? Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. What's up, man?
Yeah, so I'm an indie dev, so I was wondering if you could, any advice for someone who's going to open up a game studio that you wish someone told you or gave you advice on?
Make sure you figure out the role that you want in the studio. If you're a creative and you're not a business person like myself, find a good business person to partner with. Build your Avengers, right? And just make what you want to make. But also find ways to get attention. Like I said to the earlier caller, once you have a prototype, tweet all these other game developers. If you find somebody on social media that is like, artist at Naughty Dog, follow them on Twitter. right? Just treat game developers like Pokemon. Just you got to catch them all and badger them, and then start making what you're gonna make, and also be very, very careful with business. Get a fucking lawyer, get a good lawyer, because you're gonna have to spend some money on that, right? And that's honestly off the top of my head the most I can think of. But it's rough out there in the indie space, buddy. That's why Kickstarter and Fig are such things. Because it's not really about the money; it's about getting eyeballs on your product and getting an embedded community from day one, or whenever your backers hit. So it's basically these multifaceted things that make an indie game a hit. And look at what's.
Go ahead.
So I read this book called Hitmakers.
I love that book. That book's fucking awesome.
Right. So his whole thing is, he says, the world generally tends to respond to something that's new but familiar in a different way.
Yeah.
Star Wars was Hidden Fortress, but by way of space. There's always ways of twisting that sort of thing, right? So make something that's familiar but different, so you have an interesting angle on it. Again, going back to PUBG, Fortnite is PUBG but with a cool cartoony style and with a building, right? So it has enough of a twist on it, right? And that was always my thing throughout my career when we were doing the Unreal and Unreal Tournament games. Unreal was going against Quake, so I'm like, okay, we're gonna have wide open areas, higher res textures, and colored lighting, whereas Quake is drab dungeons, right? So
yeah, and go read Hitmakers. It's a great fucking book. And what I was gonna say real quick is it's also one of the challenges is video game development has become. It's not YouTube yet, and it may never be YouTube, but whether you're looking at Roblox or Core Engine or all of these sort of a little bit south of Unity and Unreal, or in some cases a lot of it south, the ability to get your idea out there is easier than ever. And so maybe 3 years ago, you could make I don't think something like Braid, which a lot of people think is a phenomenal game, and I think that's great, I don't think that game today would fly in the way that it did, because I think now it's not that your game has to be a meme, but it's like anything else. It has to have heat on it. And I know a lot of indie developers don't really have that kind of marketing hat that they put on. So they might.
The thing is, the internet, pizza delivery. I love stuff like that. The internet loves wacky. The internet loves quirky, loves wacky, and if something becomes a meme, and some of the powers that be are realizing ways to get attention on social media. The vampire lady from Resident Evil, the little dog in the wheelchair in the new Far Cry. I saw that shit was all over my fucking feed, right? I don't know how old you are, but if you're younger and in touch with meme culture, don't want to be like me. How do you do, fellow kids, right? But make weird and wacky shit, because what that gives streamers is the ability, and YouTubers, the ability to overact. Oh my God, can you believe that? His head just fucking exploded and spiders flew out. Because, YouTube and PewDiePie were built on that thing. Come get me, Mr. Slenderman, right? That kind of shit. Mm-hmm. So
but if you're not going to do that, and it's not in your heart, don't do it. But make sure what you do can generate passion in the audience. However, but I agree with Cliff.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, I've seen so many indie games that are brilliant. I'm playing a game right now called Dorf Romantic, which is made by 4 guys in Germany, 4 students, which is one of the best games I've played this year. And I don't know if it's ever going to hit. It's so relaxing. It's so peaceful. It's so tranquil, but it's so obscure conceptually that, I think you got to wrap it a little bit more commercially.
Well, there's a point where it could be too weird. There's a balance there.
That's right.
And that's something that, this is something we never had to consider when we were making our games, Dave. Just what's the memeability of this character or this thing, right?
Well, because we had massive machines behind us. The best lesson I ever learned was going to Comic-Con, and the left of the hall is all of the money. It's Fox and Sony and Paramount and Microsoft. And then if you get past the center and go to the right, it's the ideas are just as fresh, just as interesting, but those are the self-published and things like that. And you're like, why is God of War better than that guy's idea or that guy's execution? No, It's just that I happen to work on a great game with a lot of great people, and then I had the machine to sell it. And a lot of times you can get caught up and go, oh, I'm successful only because of the product. And it's like, that's half the battle.
Yeah, but Microsoft marketing department was fucking fantastic.
I got to have you back on to talk about Microsoft, because people in the chat are saying, talk to Cliff about Game Pass. Obviously, I'm a huge Game Pass fan. I think Microsoft is ahead of the curve on that. I also want to know what the fuck is happening with their production, because those guys can't make a game clearly to save their fucking lives. And I don't get it.
Everything's going to be a service. Everything is, Disney
Sure.
Plus. Everybody has a hard on for Netflix. That's the plain and simple of it.
Yeah. Have you played Game Pass or PS?
No, I actually don't have it.
Oh, it's great. It's really great. But the point, though, is that is as brilliant as what Microsoft is doing with that or Xbox is doing with that, I mean, they can't seem to get their product development together. And I don't know if it's key people have left or I don't know what it is.
Or do the whole buy a studio and ruin it like EA does all the time?
I don't know. I hope not, because I know I really do like their vision, but it's like, what is happening over there, man? All right, last two calls we got Zim M 804 coming in. Zim, you're talking to Clifford Bleszinski. Go.
Game design question. So yeah, now that the consoles has SSD in them, devs just can design games utilizing that. But the only idea they got nowadays is like putting fucking portals and shit and teleporting games. So what would you or Cliff do to utilize the SSD? What type of game design would you utilize for the SSD?
I'm not quite sure what he's talking about.
So, okay, I'll tell me if I'm rephrasing this right. So basically, the new consoles, specifically PS5, have solid state drives, kind of like the Mac was the first.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really fast loading. And the best thing, and a lot of the developers were kind of doing the press about this will change everything, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, okay. So that's what's leading to the new Ratchet and Clank going through all the
right, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And I have found in Demon Souls that was the best example of actually how that improved gameplay, because Demon Souls I could never get into, or any of those of the Bloodborne Souls games, because the death was so frustrating, and then you had the load of like 30 or 40 seconds, and I'm like, oh, fuck this shit. But the SSD, you die and you're immediately back to the start, and it's like a racing game where you hit the rail and you're like, oh, fuck, restart, and you're right back in. And that actually made me a huge fan of Demon Souls. And so, but short of that, though, and you tell me if I'm wrong.
The SSD enables you to instantly switch scenes because of the insanely fast loading time,
right? Mostly, yeah. Not instantly, but seemingly instantly. But the thing is, though,
there's ways to hide that shit, yeah.
There are. But you tell me if you experience this as well. And I get so frustrated, and maybe I shouldn't, because these are good companies with good PR. But I'm always like, whenever a new piece of hardware came out that we were promoting, or I imagine you guys with Unreal Engine, a lot of this is talking points. A lot of this is marketing. A lot of this is spin. So the idea that it's like, what is PlayStation 5 going to let developers do that you couldn't do before? And then, the PRs pulled you aside and said, talk up this, talk up that, talk up this. And it's just kind of like, I'm not saying the SSD is not great. I have loved that fast loading. But the idea that these developers, and maybe they're right and I just don't know, but he's asking you, what do you think as a designer, if you had this super fast loading, how is that going to change games? My answer is it's not.
What could you do? Like, what type of ideas can you come up with? Because, like, off the top of my head, you can like put a button that'll instantly change your armor. As opposed to.
But you can do that. You can do that now. You can do that now.
As opposed to going into the pause menu and having to select a preset.
But that's not but that's not the SSD. You can do that right now. The only reason you go into a pause menu is, at least in most games, is because they want you to have the interaction of making the choice. Look at a bunch of games where you hit a button and you change your weapon instantly, or you
character creators.
Yeah, I mean that's not an SSD issue.
I mean, it will give you the opportunity. Well, what type of ideas do you think developers you can come up with to take advantage of something like that?
Zim, I'd have to sleep on it and answer in the next podcast, honestly.
All right. Thanks, Zim. We'll get back to you, but nothing comes to mind. I love that they're there. It's a great part of the new hardware, but at least right now, I think you're being sold a little bit of a bill of goods, like it's going to change everything. But it's great. It ain't bad. Thanks, buddy. All right, here are the last two calls. This is Uncle Fuzznuts. Uncle
D's nuts.
There you go. Oh, hey, where did you go, you old so-and-so? Come on now. Get on in there. Uncle Fuzznuts. God damn you, son of a bitch. Don't leave my chat. Okay, this is Bottom Memoir. Okay. What's up, buddy? You are talking to Clifford Bleszinski. Are you?
Hello, Cliff.
Hello, mate.
Hello. I'll admit I've never done anything like this before, so I'm very nervous.
It's all right. The penis goes in the vagina, sir. Just stick it in there and let's see what happens, eh?
Don't be a
All right, I'll go in ramming first so hard that I'll break my arm in the process. Oh, God, it's broken.
No, you don't put your arm in there. You put your penis in there, boy. All right, go. You're on with Cliff.
All right. Fuck, I've forgotten what to say.
Come on now, baby.
You're good, buddy.
All right. What was it like making?
Write it down.
What was it like making the overall franchise from the foundation up, so to speak? How was the overall creative process for it?
For Gears or?
For both Gears and Lawbreakers, also.
Yeah, that's
all right.
That's an incredibly long answer, man.
Yeah.
So they did a Gears retrospective that you can buy that I actually contributed to. Arthur G. Guys wrote it. It's a great book. That'll answer honestly all those questions. I mean, basically, a bunch of like-minded, nerds, who love things like Aliens, Predator, just everything in between, right? Basically bouncing ideas off of each other, and it's almost like a Ouija board, right? Where we're all kind of have our hands on it. We're all kind of going in a certain direction and looking at market trends and making ultimately the kind of game you want to play. And Lawbreakers was a whole other different thing of me, I always said in all the interviews having the nightmare of inverted gravity and things like that, which never really stuck in the final game. But a lot of what I do creatively comes from the grist of the mill of what I consume from pop culture, right? You can see that in a lot of the products, right? And it's basically a very difficult, complicated process that requires years of work, and that also starts at the interview process when you're hiring somebody and figuring out what they like, what they don't like, what do they play, what kind of games do they play. If you're going to make a shooter and this person only plays JRPGs and they're going to be a gameplay designer, that might not necessarily be the best fit, right? But it is a long, complicated process that people have written books on, man. So it's a very, very wide, broad question, my friend.
Yeah, and if you ever want to talk more, obviously Cliff won't be on, but whenever we stream, at the end we do calls, and you can call in. I'll give you my insight, or I can direct you to some books. Thanks for the call, buddy. No need to be nervous. You did great. Call back anytime, sir. All right, let me get Fuzz Nuts. Let me try one more time. I want my Fuzz Nuts. Come on now. God damn it, Fuzz Nuts.
Just why is this a fuzzy nuts? It's crazy.
Okay, are you there? Okay, I'm going to drag. We're going into this room. Here we go. Fuzz Nuts, are you there? Are you there?
Yes.
There we go. What's up, man?
Quite the production, Fuzz Nuts.
Yeah, right. All right. Fuck, marry, kill. Dixie Kong, Toadette, Miss Pac-Man.
Wait, what were the first two?
Dixie Kong from Donkey Kong Country and Toadette.
Which one's Toadette?
Toadette.
Oh, from Mario.
Toadette.
Yeah.
Okay. Kill Toadette. Dixie Kong. And what was the third one?
Miss Pac-Man.
Absolutely marry Miss Pac-Man. She's thick with the three C's.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, you sick pervert. Later.
Thank you, buddy. All right, Clifford, we did it. Listen, we hit it right at 2:12. I want to talk about your book.
We got that last little trolley comment in right as we're wrapping up.
We did. Real quick, one last question. The book. Okay.
Yes.
So you wrote an autobiography. It is coming out, correct? I mean, I saw you in New York on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, but it might be in a year's. In order to do a book like this, you have to it's just like launching a game. You have to build up the hype.
Right.
The way that the book was explained to me by my agent and the people that I was working with. It always sounds douchey when you say my agent, by the way. Is Kitchen Confidential for video games.
Okay.
R.I.P. Anthony Bourdain, right? Mm-hmm. It's a peek behind the curtain, but it's I've read other books about people in the video game industry, and they're very dry. They're very technical. But then we were working on this game. Then we were working on that game. It's who's the characters?
Right, right.
Put people in the room. I wound up partnering with this guy Todd Gold. I did about 80% of the writing, but he took the 20% and made it really, really, really good.
He's written other biographies, right? I've seen this name before.
Yeah, he's very, very legendary. He did Drew Barrymore's Little Girl Lost.
That's right. I read that. That's what he wrote. Yeah. Okay.
Dude, this dude has some fucking stories. He had that almost famous rock journalist being embedded with the rock stars in the 80s.
Right.
And so he's was embedded with Michael Jackson in Japan in the 80s. He was embedded with Madonna in the 80s. He showed me photos of him with Bubbles the chimp. Awesome. I'll casually mention something about this, that, or the other. He's telling stories about writing Anne Margaret's memoir, The Osbournes, things like that. This guy's a fucking badass, and he knows the stuff. And most importantly, he taught me how to be a writer.
Okay.
Right? All my prior writing was very conversational, blah, blah, blah. And he and I would go back and forth once a week. I'd write some stuff up. He'd send it to me and bleed all over it. after a year or so, we have 300 pages. That's actually one of the notes from Simon and Schuster. It's like, it's too fucking big. But there's also, buzz that and people are talking about a possible adaptation for something for it.
Nice. Oh, wow. Okay. So Netflix Cliff Bleszinski show. Who's going to play in the show, Cliff? Let me guess. It's got to be that guy from The Flash, right? Grant Gustin would be a good Cliff Bleszinski. What do you think?
Well, the thing is, there's 3 Cliff Bleszinskis, right? There's like, right. C Space Invaders, me, and again, referring to yourself in the third person.
Understood.
Makes you kind of an asshole. Therefore, Pokemon are all assholes.
Okay.
Then there's like, teen to 20, and then there's like 30 to 40, right?
Well, we know Dane Cook hasn't worked. You can get him cheap. He's somewhere in there, probably the second Cliff. He's the Gears Cliff. Right.
It's funny. He actually came up in conversation last week. A producer that I'm working with on some stuff is actually friends with him, and he's like, "You want to meet Dane Cook?" I'm like, "Okay." And like this producer guy's like, "Oh yeah, Tom Cruise is great. You love him." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. No, that's good though. You're lucky. The only guys they ever asked me to meet is Carrot Top, so you're in good company. Cliff, bud.
Okay, yeah, you got to wrap it up, yeah.
Well, no, I don't have to wrap it up. You have to wrap it up. You got to go to dinner.
My whole thing about why I love Comic-Con and why I throw this party with some friends is it's an intersection of some very fascinating people, not just celebrities, like engineers, cosplayers, even porn stars, right?
Yeah.
And like everything in between. Did I ever tell you my Riley Reid story?
The who?
She's this like famous brunette porn girl. She's like this big. I shook her hand. She's like, I'm so-and-so, and you may know me by my stage name, Riley Reid, and then everything I've ever seen her do online flashed before my eyes.
Of course.
And then Lauren turns to me and goes, "How do you know her?"
Oh, what did you say? You probably told her the truth. She's your wife?
I told her the truth. She doesn't give a shit. Dude,
she's like, let's go back, take her back to the Hard Rock. The best Comic-Con story for me was I was sitting at, I think it was that sushi restaurant right across the street, real famous. Nobu, yes. And I'm sitting there with some Sony folks, and right across the table are Geordie LaForge, Number One, the guy who played Data, everybody except Whoopi Goldberg and Captain Picard and Will Wheaton. All the rest were there eating dinner, and they came over to me and were telling me how much they loved God of War, and I'm like, that's awesome. Fucking shitting me. I never that never gets old. That famous people who have made shit that I love like stuff that we got. Well,
it's like finding out that Ice-T was playing all my games while I was listening to his music over the years, right? And then my final Comic-Con flex was that I got into the Entertainment Weekly party a few times.
I remember that. I remember you were in a magazine, right? Weren't you in the pictures? That was one of my goals when I was looking like a dork in like a fucking pond, right? And so, but the thing is I know David and Dan from Game of Thrones, right? Mm-hmm. And so they came to the Big Dummy Out party, and they're like, "Hey, you mind if some of the cast comes?" I'm like, "Yeah." And next thing I know, I'm like shooting the shit, getting drunk with Sir Davos, Liam Cunningham. And so the next night, I go into the Entertainment Weekly party. Benioff walks by me eating something. And he's like, "Cool party last night. You come over to our cabana," because they have all the branded cabanas and everything like that. The cast is hanging out, and Liam Cunningham's daughter is there, Ellen Cunningham. She's a fantastic, lovely young woman, aspiring game designer who's actually now in the industry. Okay.
But she recognizes me. It's like, "Oh my God, you're Cliffy B!" Like right in front of like all of them, and I was just like, hee hee hee. And then I ran into. She went to GDC a few years ago, and I was like, "I will introduce you to absolutely everybody that I know in the industry," because now she's like making games and she's doing well with it.
That's awesome.
And so it's cool. It's cool to have those kinds of connections, and it's just flattering to see if you're a consumer of entertainment, you're often consumers of so many different types of entertainment.
Yes,
right?
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
We definitely have to do this together.
It's fun waters to swim in. Look, man. Yeah, I have like 30 fucking goddamn things to talk to you about. I'm going to call you back. Feel free to say no, but I appreciate you being here. The fans, the chat appreciate you being here, and I'm
absolutely in.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Cliff. And you guys have a good dinner. Tell your lovely wife. I saw that you were tweeting that she's going to get back into cosplay, which I think is that. Whenever I see her out and about, which is only with you at Comic-Con, she's always wearing the craziest, coolest cosplay. So I think
her War for Darksiders was fucking awesome.
So I'm glad things are slowly starting to get back to normal. So hopefully we'll see you at Comic-Con next year.
I will not miss it, dude.
All right. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Cliff.
DM me about another date for this.
Absolutely. You got it, buddy.
All right, later.
All right. There goes Clifford the Bleszinski into the evening, fellas. We'll hang back and talk just a little bit and wrap things up. I'm so happy to talk to Cliff. I'm so happy that he came on the show. What am I looking for? I'm looking for my screen. 1 second, fellas. hello, Rob the Mod. How you doing?
I'm good.
Hang on, let me find my fucking screen that's not Spider-Man. Is that my screen? That's my screen right there.
Geek out. I'm a huge Cliff Bleszinski fan. So
I mean, you're not as much as you're a David Jaffe fan, of course, but.
Oh well, no.
But no, I understand. Thank you for modding all the calls. Were there any crazy people that you had to kick off?
I didn't think Please was gonna troll. I don't know if that was a troll, if he was genuinely upset or what. But that was awkward.
No, I didn't. I thought that was great. I thought, I thought that was, that Cliff's response was fantastic.
Yeah.
And he's actually in the chat, and he was he was kind of saying, "Hey, I appreciate that, Cliff," and all that stuff. So I mean, Cliff's a guy who clearly has done some mental work on himself in the best way possible. I mean, the fact that Kay says my porn folder was out. I don't give a shit. First off, let's be clear, Kay. I don't have a porn folder. I don't know. Like when Cliff was telling us that story of that Riley lady he met at Comic-Con or GDC or wherever it was. And it's like, oh, how do you know her? I don't know the names of these people. I don't save my porn. You just go and you find new shit every goddamn day. The idea that
that's something people actually do. They save their
people talk about the goddamn porn folders. Like, what are you saving that shit for?
I've only seen that in movies.
I'm a one and done kind of guy. I get my rocks off with that. I move on to the next one. I'm like Jay-Z. I don't understand it.
I don't got enough time in the day to be making porn folders.
I don't either. Fuck you, Kay, you so and so. But anyway, yeah, Cliff was great. He sounds like the kind of guy who's done some really good work on his stuff, because this is a guy who, I mean, you lose your dad at a really young age. He said, I mean, I didn't want to get into this with him on today's chat, but I mean, it's like, everybody has their bag of hammers, but here's a guy who, says he hasn't talked to his mom in a long time. He's had some shit to deal with. And I know some of that stuff has gone into his games, which I wanted to get to him about. But the fact that now you can kind of come out the other side and just be like, yeah, I'm sorry about that, dude. I was just kind of an asshole and I was lashing out. I mean, that's such a great thing for people to hear.
If you can get a therapist that'll take your insurance, it is worth.
Oh, he's right about that. He's right about that. Therapy should not be something.
That took mine. Go
ahead.
I found a therapist that could take my insurance, and it's been great.
Yeah, therapy should not be something that like is a perk because you've got some fucking money. That's ridiculous. Most therapists take a couple of clients every year that are sliding scale, like pro bono sometimes, which is good. I know you don't see me, guys, because whenever I do Zoom takes over my camera and I would have to kill the stream to put me on. You'll see me later, you'll so-and-so. But anyway, all right. Well, that is the stream. That is Cliff Bleszinski. Let me tell you guys what's coming up pretty soon. We have John Romero. The great John Romero is coming on the show. I got to schedule that this afternoon. I'm hoping next week, but it really is up to him. I'm playing his studio's new game right now, which is Empire of Sin. And boy, I was up till 3 a.m. playing that. It did not get great reviews, but they dropped it on Game Pass. And like I've been saying, whether you're talking about PlayStation Now, whether you're talking about Game Pass, suddenly things become critic-proof. Like IGN gave that a 4 out of 10. Rob, you've been playing that game. You think that game's a 4 out of 10?
When you told me to download it to try it out, I was like, I'm not a big fan of it, but I got into it. I've been playing hours.
I killed I killed 2 mob bosses last night. I'm going through the city and I'm wiping them all out. I don't give a fuck. I'm killing them all.
I think we lost.
You lose me? Am I there?
I have been having so much fun with that game.
Yeah.
No, you're here now. Yeah, I've been having so much fun with it, dude.
So Romero's coming on. It sounds like, talking to him, that Brenda Romero, who one could argue is, I mean, they're kind of a power couple, because one could argue she's a almost more legendary game designer than he is in terms of the influence that she has had. She designed Empire of Sin, directed it, although he did some design on it too. So she's going to be coming on soon. I think we have Alana Pierce coming on. She's getting back from Australia in July. She's going to come on. We've got the writer, Abraham Reisman, who wrote this amazing book called True Believer, The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee, which basically is a phenomenal book, and it goes into the fact that Stan Lee may not have actually been the guy that we thought. You know who I reached out to, Rob, who said he'll come on, but I haven't gotten locked down yet?
Who?
Boogie299, whatever. I get the numbers. The Boogie guy, Francis. Used to be Francis, now he's Boogie. He says he's going to come on the show. So we got a lot of people coming on soon. What's that?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to see it.
I will be streaming some Empire of Sin later this evening, and I will be doing a normal Gabbin' and Games sometime tomorrow. In the meantime, Robert, thank you. Rathy, thank you. I think I saw Bukaki or RPG in here. All the mods, thank you guys very much. All the great super chats, thank you. The great calls, thank you. And of course, Clifford Bleszinski, thanks for your time, buddy. Thanks for your candidness. I would love to get Shannon Studd still on. I keep asking her, and she keeps kind of saying, I'm not ready yet. So I'll have to. I reached out to Jim Sterling, Joe. Joe has literally... Jim Sterling has not gotten back to me. Tim Schafer said he will come on. I've talked to Tim Schafer. That's not scheduled, though. But yeah, I would love Jim Sterling to come on. I don't understand.
Is Empire of Sin, is that a good streaming game? Like, I didn't catch the last stream. Is it
I
good?
mean, it's I don't know. Maybe I'll stream something else. It's only the biggest problem with that game is you play it from a removed isometric camera. And so if you're watching it like on a tablet or a phone, you probably can't tell much of what's going on. But it's good in that there's a lot of talking you can do with the with the chat. But here's the bigger point. Unless I just get really tired, I'll be streaming something tonight. So I'll see you tonight or I'll see you tomorrow. There's a lot of good stuff coming up soon. We got a Bomberman competition. You got to spend $20 to get in, and all of that money is going to go paid out in prizes. So it'll be like a $20 Steam card is the entry fee. And then I think the first place winner gets 75%, and the second place winner gets 20%, and the third place winner gets 5%. And so hopefully we'll have a lot of cash prizes to give out. That's coming up soon.
I already got my Steam card, man.
Which one?
I got my Steam card ready. So
that's right. And you've been practicing Bomberman, right?
I have been practicing, and let me tell you what, I still suck.
It's hard. It's not easy. Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah, it is very fun. All right, Robert, thank you. Chat, thank you, everyone. And Cliff, thank you very much, buddy. It's good to talk to you as always. I'll see you.